holes will still remain. I need an ocean full of love, although I know the holes will still remain. And the Swiss cheese hot nose, only kindness can fill its holes. And love could dry my tears, as pain disappears. I need a miracle and not so much charity. One drop of love from him and my heart's in ecstasy. The highlight is sending me is most likely ending me. I need a miracle and not so much charity now.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Preemptive Strike Spoilercast. My name is Renegade Operative, and we will be talking about Silent Hill enemies and giving our sort of discussion piece and analysis on them from Silent Hill 1 to Origins. So, I'm going to introduce my panel. First, we have Lily Greywolf.
Hi, I'm Lily Greywolf. Do a little bit of streaming. Been on some podcasts before. Super excited to be here. Love Silent Hill.
Next, we have Drillbit.
Oh, hey everyone. I'm just here to talk about some Silent Hill. That should be fun.
Next up is Jojo.
Hello, good to be back on talking about more Silent Hill stuff. I love Silent Hill and I love analyzing stuff, including the monsters. So this will be kind of fun.
I'm
Brandon.
about to say Final Fantasy. Yeah, hey everybody, I'm here now. So let's talk about scary stuff.
Next up is Black Shadow.
Yep. Howdy all. For some reason, Renegade continues to invite me back to these. I don't know why, but I'm here regardless. And admittedly, while I'm more Resident Evil than Silent Hill, you know, I've still played plenty of these. And if I can get in one witty line over like the next 9 minutes, I'll take that.
And last but not least, Mr. Black Devil.
Hey, here to talk about some Silent Hill stuff. One of my favorite game series, and I'm excited to do it.
So what's the over-under in the amount of times that we're going to mistake Black Devil and Black Shadow over the course of this podcast?
I was thinking the same
Ooh,
thing.
well, you know, it's gonna
I think
happen.
it's about 4.5.
Just try not to jinx it. That's the best thing you could do.
We'll just call you by Shadow and Devil. That sounds the easiest way.
Yeah, that might work.
Thank goodness.
Down with that, yeah.
All right, so the way we're gonna do this is obviously for time's sake and consistency. Some Silent Hill games will not be mentioned, like Shattered Memories, and some monsters might be missing, but it's already a long, extensive document. If people want to read along and see the creatures we're talking about one by one, I will put that in the description of the video below. We're gonna talk about gameplay and how we feel about the monsters from there. We're gonna talk about their appearance, and we're gonna talk about their symbolism. So the first one we have is the Great Child and the Mumblers. Basically the same enemy, but the Mumblers are reskinned, and I believe they were reskinned because in the EU they did not have great children, so they put claws on them to make it like we're not killing kids.
That's because of the ratings board for the respective areas.
Yeah.
They all like they look too childlike, so let's not do it.
Mhm.
As ironic as that sounds.
Even though it was like the late 90s and you could sort of do whatever you wanted, apparently that was one step too far. In a game like Silent Hill, it always seems kind of jarring to me, given all the stuff we've seen in Silent Hill over the past, 20 years?
Yeah. We've seen...
And they're not human either, so like that's kind of silly.
Yeah, that the EU ratings board is a bit weird since they used to ban stuff for the smallest reasons.
Yeah, all the blood is green, and some countries are purple, and that's in there like as a extra on a second playthrough. I think in 2 or 3 you can change the blood to green and purple.
Yeah,
But,
you can do that on the PC versions. And I think about the claw finger, the mumbler, is that like I mean, obviously in the PAL and Japanese versions they replaced the gray children, And in our version, they only appeared like in the sewers, like they looked reptile looking. I think they were all. I think they also had the name Clawfinger at the time.
Were mumblers in the American version? Because apparently, from
No.
what it says,
No.
apparently from what it says, the green enemies are way different. They're called something else.
Yeah, they kind of look ish, maybe similar, but they are something different. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they look more monster-like than childlike that the Gray Child was going for in the American version.
Yeah, that's why I had to bring that up.
Then they recycled them for the sewer part of the game.
Yeah.
At least in the North American version. I think in the Japanese and PAL version, they were all over the They were all over the game, I think.
I mean, to be fair to anyone that was running through the sewers at the rate of knots, you should probably have been running through them. I mean, like I could easily understand people like thinking it's the same thing or similar or whatever else, because like you meant to just absolutely book it through there. So like it's completely understandable.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about like. I think that was a good deal of talking about looks. Let's talk about gameplay. How do you feel about them from a gameplay perspective? Are they threatening? Are they easy? Did you hate them? Love them?
They're a
They're
common
just
enemy,
more-
right? So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
kind of generic enemy type, really.
Yeah,
So
they were just more annoying than scary, since they just tried to
Yeah.
grab at your legs sometimes.
Yeah,
But
like
that's what you want.
if you fought them like one at a time, they were no problem. But if they were like approaching you 2 or 3 at a time, then maybe they would be a little bit of a problem. In which case, yeah, you might have to use the handgun or something. I try to finish them with the melee weapons so I could save ammo, but they
Yeah,
can
I
get a
always
little annoying when they group up on you.
yeah, I always just saved ammo for like the more threatening enemies or bosses.
Yeah, but again, this is what you want. You know, these were like early game enemies, so from a design point of view, you don't want them to be particularly challenging or difficult. You know, the player's still trying to learn the control scheme, doesn't know how stuff works. You know, save all the more difficult enemies for later on. Like I think they serve perfectly. To be fair to them as well, they also, of course, were part of like the great intro sequence for Silent Hill, when everything just goes to hell and you get trapped, which of course is just you once you go for it, you can never forget it. So they get plus marks for that.
Yeah, definitely from just them being like one of the first things that you see, and just in like the dream sequence before from the beginning where you can't kill them is a little different than when you see them like the second time around and you actually can, like in the school. But fighting them like the first time when they're ganging up on you or something, if you weren't ready for that combat switch of just like, oh, I should be using the gun, and you have the knife out and you're trying to like knife those things and they just grab you, and the way they grab you is so like just disturbing that they were
Yeah,
pretty
the
creepy.
laughing sound they make.
Yeah, stuff like that.
They always looked like they were doing some sort of fellatio on the main character, so I never took them seriously.
Yeah, that too.
Oh,
Hilarious,
come on,
yeah.
Ren, really?
They
Only,
really do,
what,
like
6 minutes into this.
yeah.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I mean,
They always
Yeah.
look like they were sucking Harry's junk, and I was like, what is going on with this animation? It's very strange.
I always thought they were just trying to stab his leg or something.
I mean, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to grab your legs and slow you down, but at the right angle. He's not wrong.
I actually thought they were like trying to bite his leg or something the first time I saw it. Anyway,
That kind of, you know what? That kind of makes a lot more sense for the mumblers, considering the face is like super deformed and they have mouths and everything.
Yeah, the mumblers look totally different. Where it's just like they almost look like a giant like teddy bear creature, and they do
Mhm.
have those like weird claws, and their face is totally like different, where it does seem more like up their alley to attack you in such a way.
As for symbolism, it's pretty straightforward. It's all about bullying, you know. So the classmates that were bullying Alyssa, this is the physical manifestation. Apparently the mumblers are a little bit different. There is an explanation saying that they were derived from animals and stuff like that, and demons. That's why they have claws. So I think both sides of the story really make sense when you put it into perspective for the interpretation of these creatures.
Oh yeah,
Love it.
considering Alessa was like raised on the religion of the cult, she was probably taught a lot about these. She probably shown like various books that had these demons and crap in them, and they just got drilled into her head so much that maybe that might have some semblance to them.
Hmm.
Bology or whatever the word.
I feel like if that were the case, then I don't know if she would make them like something that was like evil or that was on the side of something like attacking her. It is like interesting that she may or may not have been like raised around a lot of that stuff for her to like want to make them like look more like a demon if that was something that was supposed to be part of like what she wanted out of life. Not that it's exactly what she wanted. It was, what her mom was forcing on her, but
Yeah,
it
it's
is
probably
interesting.
since you bring that up, it probably has something to do with like how because she was forced into doing all this cult stuff against her will, she probably saw these creatures that the religion probably showed her as like gods or deities, but because of the torture and the bad experience she went through, she probably saw them as legit monsters and stuff. That might have something to do with it too.
Well, the
Right.
the
That you
thing
mentioned that.
the thing with that is that you can apparently, if you have like likes or interests, that can be apparently warped into monsters, because even in the next question it says that Alessa was like into dinosaurs, and for the pterodon, she envisioned those as creatures in the city. So that can happen based on a person's likes or dislikes.
Yeah,
That
and
Yeah.
too. Yep.
that's the thing about the enemies that you see. It's not just Alessa, it's also Cheryl's influence and what she's afraid of. So you
Is
get both
everyone's
sides of like what monsters what they perceive as monsters and what they perceive as things that can help protect them. The pterodon is
Yeah,
definitely one.
that's interesting too, of just what Alessa like saw. Like there were certain types of monsters that like obviously like the children from her school were like against her and they were doing something bad to her, where like, the pterodactyl monsters, it's like they are just like flying around doing whatever half the time anyway. It's like
Mhm.
they sort of have like a totally different feel than the gray children, who are obviously like, out to get you.
Right.
But anyone else before we move on to the next one? All right, I think.
Uh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
good.
All right, I think
I
we
was
can
just
move on
gonna,
to the air screamer, right?
yeah, the pterodactyl, right?
Uh, I'm gonna talk about them gameplay wise. I fucking hate them. I don't know why, but I think that's the first real enemy where it's just as fast as you are, and it could kick you in the back of the head. And I always despise that no matter what. I think it's worse in Nowhere with the other enemy, the Night Flutter, because
Yes.
you can't see where it's coming from and it's all dark.
And you hear that
Yeah.
sound where it's just like this thump, like when it hits you in the back of the head, it's like, and you turn around, you can't ever spot them directly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they just
and
come out of nowhere and their movement is so random sometimes that's like any way that you try to like backtrack and run around them, it's like they just go on this like straight path that you can't even move in straight at you. And it's like, how was I supposed to?
yep, and they're hard. So and when they do that, they're also a little bit hard to shoot, and because they're moving so fast, you can't really melee them with any. I mean, I've seen some people like swing at them and hit them with the pipe, which I honestly can't do in all my years of playing the game.
You
So
could
they're
practice.
kind of like a hard enemy early on in the game, because as soon as you hear the it's coming,
Hmm.
even if you have the radio on, it's them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about their appearance. I didn't know that the Night Flutter at least was so different to the fact where it's like worms coming out of their head. Did anyone notice that?
No,
Yeah.
on the original, like you definitely like can't really notice that much of a
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
that
Yeah, unless
one.
you're
Like-
going to war with everything and then inspecting what's left over, which is pretty difficult to do sometimes. Like, yeah, you're
Right,
gonna.
or if you
Yeah, when
look
they're
at
moving.
or if you look at concept art of them, I noticed the worm head thing when I saw like actual art of them.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
in
really.
game.
Yeah, it's pretty freaky looking how their heads are just made entirely out of worms.
Hmm. Otherwise, I think that the regular one, the purple one that you see, is just pretty generic. Like the other one looks much better in terms of enemy design, so I would go with that one. Outside of
Terra-
that, it just looks like a random pterodon. That's it.
Yep,
Yeah,
a
it's
pterodon
they're
with a
skinless
pterodon
though.
covered in human flesh almost.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they've got this weird, like fleshy, skinless appearance.
Gross.
And the last thing, go
Apparently,
ahead.
oh, real quick though, one of the designers, Masahiro Ito, I think his name was. That's
Yeah.
his favorite monster in the first game.
I can see
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, it turns out the
Yeah.
design of it.
Yeah, considering it's the most otherworldly thing in it.
Yeah, it's really iconic too, because it's one of the only
Yeah.
enemies where you actually have to fight them to leave the
Mhm.
diner in the beginning. So it's usually one that everybody like really remembers from the series.
What do you guys think of the symbolism? We talked about this earlier, where apparently Alyssa, she was a big fan of The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, I believe is his name.
Oil.
Yeah, yeah. And basically that's where the pterodons come from. She was very interested in those books. As for the Night Flutter, apparently she doesn't like worms or snakes, and I really can't blame her because I think snakes are a sign of the devil and they need to be thrown in a pit as soon as possible. That being said,
Yeah.
what do you think about the symbolism?
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
mean,
straightforward in my opinion.
I think
Yeah,
like,
it's
that's not
fairly
always relying.
straightforward. Yeah.
Mm.
I like that's not relying on somebody's fears or other anxiety type things, right? It's just something that you like.
Or
Like,
something that
turn,
was
like turn viewers'
probably
nightmare.
yeah, or something that was just prevalent in your life.
Right, because I'm pretty sure she learned about these things in school too. Like she probably saw a bunch of books about them too.
Hmm.
Plus, how old was she when all that started happening? Because children love dinosaurs, right? So
Like
like it
about
does.
she was about 7 or 8 when she was going to school there. I think. I
Hmm.
think she was 14 about the time the game actually started.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
kids love dinosaurs, so like that does
Yeah.
line up pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On
they
the
they probably looked a lot like some how we were saying, like she's probably seen pictures of like what demons are supposed to look like. And
right.
it probably like reminded her of something familiar like that.
I always thought it was interesting that they both had there was two versions of the same enemy. You know, the Night Flutterer, it was carrying a knife too, I think, and it did a little more damage than the Air Screamer. And I always perceived that as like Cheryl's in one, you know, Cheryl's influence in one, even though they're the same person, and Alessa's influence, you know, in the other world. So it's kind of cool to see that. Plus, you have to look at Cheryl's drawings that are left everywhere, basically emulate the monsters that you're going to see. You can find pictures of the Air Screamer and the dogs, um, and it just kind of influences from what she also saw as a child. So it's cool to see that they did that for uh, both of the characters.
I suppose I should probably ask, partially on behalf of those who might not be as aware, because admittedly I don't. Like, how has this come about that Alessa and this Lost World stuff? Like, is that just like plot diving somewhere, or did I miss a memo? Or
It was in Book of Memories.
It was mentioned like I think in a couple times in Silent Hill because in Silent Hill 1 because Alessa has a lot of if you notice a lot of like the puzzles and and stuff and some of the monsters they all alliterate to books. Like
Yeah.
there's that puzzle that's related to Wizard of Oz and there's one that's related to another what's that one about the cat, the Cheshire cat?
Alice in
Yeah,
Wonderland.
Alice in
Yes.
Wonderland. Yeah, so it's probably just part of her, you know, enjoying. It's probably just mentioning a lot about her, you know, enjoying books because there's the puzzles and the monsters that all point to famous literary stuff. So that could be a thing too.
Yeah, and there's a heavy influence of fairy tales throughout the series as well.
Yep. They even mention one which hints at a boss fight.
Oh, you're talking
that she
about
read
the
as a child.
you're talking about the lizard. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yep, where in the book it's mentions like shooting it in the mouth, and that's like kind of telling you how to beat the boss.
Oh
I
yes,
forget
yes.
what the monster's called. In
I don't know either.
That's gonna
it's
be
Silent
it.
Hill 3.
Yeah.
I remember this now.
That's gonna.
Jabberwocky, I think.
I forgot. I know what you're talking about because if it hits you one time, you'll die. But essentially,
Worm boss, I think it is, isn't it?
no, he's talking about the giant lizard boss that you have to shoot it in the mouth to kill it.
It's at the end of the school.
Yeah.
Oh, that one. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I'm being dumb. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I think that once again the bosses are going to be a discussion for another time, except for Silent Hill 2, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah. On a side note, yeah, maybe it's just me, but I always thought like those like winged things from the Mist movie.
I haven't seen that one, but
I just
Yeah,
want to
you
point
should.
out that the Mist movie came out after Silent Hill 1. Just
Yeah,
point
I
that out
always
there.
thought like the monsters in that kind of had some sort of Silent Hill, and like they kind of were inspired a bit by Silent Hill.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far because it was a book before it was a movie, but in the movie
Yeah,
that
but,
was when
yeah, but all they did was there was never any actual pictures.
right because in the movie that was when like the thing broke through the window like the air screamer, and people thought that was a reference to the book because the movie didn't come out yet at the time of the game.
well, that's interesting. Yet we have to move on to the Groaner / Wormhead. This is the dog enemy that attacks you throughout the game. Obviously, the Otherworld version is different because of the head and the worms. So, what do you guys think of this enemy from a gameplay perspective?
Does a good job of being an absolute nuisance for, I think, the majority of the game, pretty much.
Oh yeah, the trick
Feels that
is
scenario.
yeah, the trick is the trick to beating them is you gotta try and bait them into jumping at you, and then time your swing just right to knock them down, and you can kill them in like one hit, not counting the stomp.
Yeah, if you
Obviously,
do like a backwards arc circle, they will rush and jump, and then you can actually kill them with the knife. And if you like practice for like 20 minutes, you can just like make the game so much easier because it's just this like silly like backwards arc where if you do like one step right and then like arc left, they just will like set up every time. It's really ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's
you can
some
sidestep them.
MLG crap there.
Yeah, it's way too much. But if you ever like play the first game again, you should try to do it because after you like get it, you're like, ugh, this is like so much like easier, and I just can't.
I just see them initially, and if there's two of them, I just get out the handgun. I get so tired of them after a while. I think the worst part is when they're like packed in alleys and you gotta run around them to get like health drinks, and they're kind of in the fucking way, and I'm trying to just grab everything and go.
Yeah, when I do a replay, I just run past them all.
Yeah.
You can totally dodge them.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, you can totally dodge them, then grab what you need and keep going. Sometimes I don't even fight them. I'm just like, oh, growl at me, and then move on. Oh, there's a health drink.
Yeah, I noticed getting the keys though is a lot easier because you can just maneuver on the other side of the street and they can't do anything.
Yeah.
Anyone else about the Groaner on gameplay before we move on to appearance? Going once, going twice. Sold to the hooker in red. Okay. The appearance. Now, to me, it just looks like, your average skinless dog, which is, well, probably not average in Silent Hill. So we're going to skip it past that. But the Groaner is also, once again, filled with worms. I mean, it's interesting to see how they animate and jump after you. And once again, Otherworld is kind of like hard because you have to sort of run around them. And again, it's dark. I like them overall in terms of an appearance. I think it was just fine for what it was. What about you guys?
Yeah, it worked towards the symbolism really easily, but I liked how they looked, how they had this terrifying look to them. They looked like they were pre-skinned but are somehow still alive.
It also
And the
looks
same thing
like
with the worm head.
they don't have any eyes either. This is really weird when you look at
Yeah,
them.
especially the worm head. Like how is that being able to see when it really doesn't even have a head?
Maybe it just senses by like sounds.
Probably.
Yeah, where it's just like different versions of like the way that like a chicken looks so different after it's been like plucked and cleaned, where it's just
Yeah.
they just have that like feel to them where it's just like this is like just meat, just like a monster coming after you. They're like little legs or so, like just like interesting, like as they like are like jumping at you and everything in like the first version, and then again like for their like nightmare version, like it's just that like extra like coloring where it's like bloody, where it's just a totally different feel as well. Just the changes
It's
for like
it's
Right, how you
it's one
perceive
thing I want to point out though. Did anyone notice the basketball court scene where you go there and someone apparently played hoops with like a basketball, but it's the dog's
Yes.
head? Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I was like, what the hell's going on here? That's just so fucking weird.
That was
And-
Yeah.
disturbing.
And what is disturbing is like how when he found it, he didn't say it was a weird looking dog's head. Like when he said dog's head, that makes me think, oh shit, like that was a normal looking
Right,
dog
yeah.
head.
You assume it's just a regular dog.
Yeah, like someone did that to a dog, and that makes it even more creepy.
Yeah.
The symbolism is pretty like straightforward. Apparently, Alyssa was just scared of dogs because they were aggressive, and that's it. I mean, it makes sense. It's nothing really too deep or anything to write home about, in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of little kids were terrified, like when they walk past their neighbor's yard and a dog like tried to get at them and just got to the end of the chain.
It's
Like
relatable.
if that chain were a little bit longer, he would have gotten me or something. So I know that was the case for me when I was a little kid, so it's kind of common.
It's all
Well, I
relatable.
mean, I was gonna say, I think one of the challenges, so especially the earlier games. I mean, again, you think these games are like over 20 years old, and the problem with that is that you've only got so much you can do with designs. There's only so much you can do with details. There's only so much that you can convey. I mean, obviously everyone knows about the whole, the fact they put in the font, obviously to help the fact that there was only so much you could do the draw distance as a way to cover that. And I think it comes across with a lot of these enemies. Like by today's standards, you look at them and you might not think there's that much going on. But it's all about what they convey, and kind of it's also like kind of the oppression that they kind of put on you, during the game. Like the screamers, for example. Like you look at them, they're not that much, but the thing you fear is hearing them. Hearing the damn fluttering and everything else. Something else we're about to come to in a moment is another good example, I think, of. It's kind of a lot of a very minimalist nature, I think, to a lot of these enemies. But they do their job very well in sort of conveying the fear, and obviously there's the backstory behind them all makes sense. But I think it's something that can be forgotten quite a lot, especially about the earlier Silent Hill games. They didn't have a lot to go on and kind of had to, almost make something out of nothing.
Yeah, and it's like you said, the oppression, the fear, a lot of it brings back some of your own personal fears, dealing with running through complete darkness, only can see so far ahead. And the same thing with the fog. It is a way to cover up the design, but it's also you're running into the unknown. And that kind of makes it terrifying as well.
Yeah, and that's the idea. It's not like although the series we dived into, I think, a bit later on, maybe with like just sheer out, sight horror. Especially early game, that they couldn't do that. They didn't have capabilities up there, so it was a lot more, call it psychological, call it whatever you want, but like playing on people and sort of their fears and their emotions.
Right.
It's like, and I think that's one of the things you remember a lot more. Especially, I mean, you think to games nowadays, there's so much more you can do. You can make them look grotesque with like 4 eyes and 6 heads or whatever the hell you want to do. But it goes to show how the simplicity they had to work with here, and that they still achieved. There's a lot of stuff we remember, especially like some of the stuff, obviously, in the hospital, that sort of thing, which are almost iconic at this point.
All right, so can we move on to the next one, which is the larval stalkers?
Okay.
Talk about minimalism. How about have virtually nothing?
Okay, these are the small miniature invisible children that can attack you. I guess we could talk about that. I thought that was weird when I saw them the first time, and I thought they were an enemy because they do make the radio go off. it really caused a warning alarm to me. At the same time, I'm like, that's really fucking disturbing, the noise and everything.
I'll be honest. The first time I played this game, I actually thought that the game I'd got was bugged because I was expecting them to attack me and then they didn't. And then like I kind of thought it was like, oh, it kind of makes sense. But no, I'm honest to God, first time I ever played this game, I actually thought my game had bugged out or something.
Yeah.
I reloaded. And I was like, okay, either my game is completely screwed or I'm missing something.
Yeah, I drew my firearm and I started shooting, and then I realized that nothing was happening. It took me like about, I would say, 20 seconds to process that this thing is not an enemy and it's just there to scare you, and that's it. And apparently, I seen rooms where it's like 3 of them walking around doing nothing, so it's kind of just a big like scare factor involved. I kind of like it, to be honest.
Chill with the enemies ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. And what's weird is like I think what throws you off is another element of this game throwing the unknown at you is the noise they make. They sound like I don't know what you guys think they sound like, but to me they sound like puppies. I don't know why. They sound like cute little puppies. I don't know why.
Well, they're what are they dog enemies anyway? So that makes sense.
No, the larval stalkers. They look like little ghost children.
Yeah.
I always thought they looked like little penguins, and it always
Yeah.
reminded me of this old, like,
Penguins.
it's like an old
Penguins.
arcade game called Antarctica, where you're like surfing like as a penguin, and it makes the same like like noise like that they make when they like fall over, and it's just like always reminded me of that. But they are like such a like odd addition where you definitely like hear your like radio go off, so you're like ready, and then you see this thing and it's like, is that like it's got a little tail, like what is this little shadow thing, like should I be scared? And then it like falls over and you're just like, what am I even like? Before of course,
Sorry.
if you do wander around the school, I was going to say you can run into the bigger versions of them which can actually attack you, so
Yeah.
those ones are that like same where you see the shadow and you're like, oh, it's just one of those things, and then it stabs you like a gray child and you're like, I need to get out of here,
Yeah.
'cause they're significantly stronger than the gray children as well.
Yeah, the listing is there is definitely invisible gray children, and I kind of forget about them after a while. Yet they are definitely in the game from what I am aware of. So that is a thing.
I think the thing that's clever with the larval stalkers, though, just gameplay wise, is that obviously you think you've been playing the game for what, maybe 45 minutes at this point, maybe an hour, something like that. And you know, you've come to learn obviously your radio. You're relying on your radio. If you hear noise, you know there's trouble about. So of course, then you get here. You know, you run into these little dudes, and it's like a false positive. You know, you're expecting trouble, and then you don't get it. It's actually kind of innocent. What it then starts doing is then it starts playing on you, like the game is constantly trying to play at you. You know, because then you're like, then though, if you once you leave, you start hearing noise at like say another building. Is it a similar spot? Is it something that wants to kill you? Is it just more shadows of memories? As I weirdly pun that game, man, that was crazy. But I think it was kind of clever. I think it's something that needs to happen. You know, if you just went through the whole game, it was just all the time you hear noise, it's an enemy you've got to fight. Like it kind of goes against Silent Hill, which is always kind of trying to trick you and keep you on the back foot. So I think on a quiet level, it kind of achieved that objective, which I think is pretty good.
I fully agree, 100%.
I always thought Silent Hill was about 90% of the doors being broken.
Yeah, that too, but that's like an entirely different discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, we would need a podcast of I think about 6 hours for that.
Yep. We talked about them being like invisible and their sort of gameplay premise. I think that ties into appearance. So I guess we could talk about their symbolism, which is once again apparently children that Alyssa saw in school, but they are related to like the inner darkness of kids and how it manifests. I thought that was interesting to see something like that, and yet the enemy itself is completely harmless to Harry. So I actually really do like that premise where it's like you kind of get a break in the process of seeing these enemies, yet they symbolize something sinister.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed about them is like like when you approach them, like when they kind of fall over a little bit, and how of course they're harmless and they can't hurt you nor you can harm them, which makes me think that they might actually be part of some. I don't know if this was mentioned anywhere in like anything, but I think they might also resemble Alessa's semblance to just kind of not be around because, like I said, like everyone else said, she's always been tormented by the people at school and her family life because of the religion. Like
Right.
this is probably her, like being afraid of these things that are around her all the time and
Yeah.
absolutely are
They to-
detrimental and terrifying to her.
they
Mhm.
totally represent bullying in school. I mean, that's
That
exactly
too,
what
yeah.
it is. You know, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
how she perceived some of her classmates because that's what they did to her. So that's
Um,
totally that.
Remind me, did they appear in the hospital? I don't remember if they appeared in the hospital or not, because that
I
was a place
forgot.
of fear for her.
I think they were only in school. The school.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they were only Midwich.
Yeah.
Alright.
I thought that they also had like something of a quality to them that even if they were like, other quiet kids who were bullied and like, you see them like tripping over and things were happening to them as well.
Right.
That like especially later on when you see the ones that are like bigger and lethal, that it's almost like a progression where it's like even if they're like something that is like smaller and like also like going through
Mm.
something similar and they're really like unassuming, that they could eventually turn into something that could be doing the same thing as like the other kids.
All right, someone refresh my memory. This ties back into the symbolism bit. Isn't there still like a desk where you can go in and you can see that people actually carve like letters and things in Alessa's desk?
Yes.
Some of them says,
Yep.
kill
I think
yourself,
it's in
all
it's
that.
in 1 and 3.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. That's tying back to the darkness of these characters being created, which is kind of disturbing, but I get it. It focuses back on school bullying, and I remember that's like a big part of showing the visual nature of what's going on and these creatures running around.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is, I say nice thing, that's completely the wrong word for this. But I mean, the thing is that the whole bullying thing, it's something that a lot of people can relate to some degree or another, either having gone through it or witnessed it or known someone who had to deal with that. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a low hanging fruit, but it's definitely, you don't want to go too niche with some of this stuff. Something like that, you can picture it, you can feel it, you can imagine it, and you can also imagine that what it would do to someone potentially who's constantly subject to that sort of thing, that there is a resentment that comes from that. And in a world like Silent Hill, where of course all that stuff just comes out and infects everything, you've got it all around you to see.
Absolutely. The next enemy I really fucking hate, and that's the Romper, which is the giant monkey enemies that you will find in the second half of the game.
Yeah,
And
they are brutal, aren't they?
I
Return to
hate
monk.
them. I hate them so much.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them either.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're tough.
I
They're tanky if
forget.
you want to fight
What
them.
part of
They
the
can
game do
run
they
around.
appear in? It's been a while.
I think they just.
Cool.
It's once all the nowhere stuff sort of starts cropping up.
Yeah,
It's
it's
kind of in
beyond-
like the middle where
middle game
you're still
onwards.
like running around. I know the place where I like actually have to run into them the most is when you're going back to the police station. If you want
Yes,
to
outside
look
the
in there.
hospital, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. In the
Mhm.
towards the pier, that sort of thing.
Yeah, where it's usually like foggy Silent Hill, not Nightmare.
I
for,
think
like,
they have. I
the
think it has
non-buddy
two
version.
versions.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
hmm
Like I think all the monsters except for like a couple have like two versions, and I think the Romper had like a more decayed look, and it was stronger.
It was
Like, way
again like the
later in the
rusty
game.
look where
Mhm.
it was just like a little more like reddish and like blood running down.
Mm.
Yeah, like it looked dirtier.
It's just more corrupted, almost, perhaps.
I despise
um,
them so much because of the grab animation they do where they pin you down and monkeys just like stomping on your balls and you can't do anything. I'm like, get off me. What are you doing?
Yeah, and it's not, as I say, they're quick. If you try and outrun them, if you try and fight them, they're tanky. They tend to not be alone either, so you get ganged up on. I mean, yeah, they're like some of the most difficult enemies. I'd say they're probably sometimes more difficult than some of the bosses in Silent Hill 1. I don't think that's a ridiculous thing to say.
No.
Yeah,
The
'cause
worst is
this
when
thing-
you run into one of those and a pterodactyl at the same time.
Which
Or when you run
happens like
into
at the
two of 'em.
pier,
Yeah.
at like the apartments, when you're
Terrible.
busy running around trying to do like the side quest with like the motorcycle, and you're going backwards and forwards, and it's just absolute hell.
That's
You're just
probably
like,
one of
why
the
am I doing this? This is not worth it.
that's probably
I
one of the enemies I'd have to use a shotgun on
Uh
constantly.
huh. Absolutely.
I find it. I find them a little bit funny because that noise that they make, like that groaning noise, it sounds like my dad when he sneezes. So every time I hear it, I laugh. I'm serious.
I mean, for me, it was Silent Hill 4. We'll get there soon. Obviously, I think a lot of people listening to this probably know what I'm referring to for that, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
The appearance is just, I mean, it's just a big looking monkey ape. I don't know what really to say about it other than the fact that we just detailed it like right then and there, and we also pointed out that there's also differing otherworld versions of it, which looks quite terrifying, honestly.
Yeah, it's like a shaved ape, and I don't know if you've seen pictures of that. I have, but I wouldn't want to see that thing in complete darkness running at me like that. Just
no,
Come on,
no,
yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, that'd be pretty bad.
Yeah,
I'd
and
be concerned.
Oh, I was gonna say just that ties into like a lot of like the places where you see them are typically like outside of a police station, like maybe they were security guards outside of the mall and the hospital where it's like they tying into them like representing her like fear of like authority and adults. It definitely makes sense that like it's just that appearance of like a tall person or like somebody strong and like what could they do to you sort of feel.
I just found I was just looking up pictures of them and I found one where you get to actually see its face. The only part of its face that there's like a mouth and its head, it looks like it's upside down, so it looks a little bit freakier than I thought. It's even got
Yeah.
like strands of like, I mean, they look like tentacles, but they also look like hair coming down the side of its head.
That's
Ugh,
fucking
gross.
disgusting. It's so
that's
disgusting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I guess you wouldn't be able to see that when it's low polygon.
That's
Oh
true.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
true.
This
in
is
the
like-
darkness. Yeah, like I never got much of a look at them because I was always just running for my absolute life. I want no part of you and whatever on earth you're bringing. I'm out
Yeah,
of
and
here.
if they pin you, like you just see the back of them anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bad
there's
times.
like the official art of them, like official art of the low poly monsters looks really, really freaky.
Yeah, it's something of like one of those like angry like demon fruits or like a mandrake root, kind of like unhappy like old tree like root face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we can move on to the next one, which is the puppet doctor and the puppet nurse with the parasites in their back. At first, I don't know, they kind of look like a mix of like normal generic people until you actually see them turn around in the game. And that's when you get the best weapon of
Yeah.
all time, which is the emergency hammer. They stand they
yeah.
stand no chance against it
No.
at all gameplay wise.
It is
Oh,
an
yeah.
emergency for a reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yep.
weird. I find it's kind of weird seeing these back because you think of like doctors and nurses and Silent Hill, and everyone else, and you always think of like the ones from Silent Hill 2. I think it's very you tend not to remember these guys who I think like in like appearance are a lot more kind of frightening.
Yeah,
You know,
these-
you got like
these
this
two
giant
actually look
growth
really
on them,
cool.
completely deformed and like
Like William Birkin up here.
yeah, well, I mean, a more recent example, like Moreau out of Resident Evil Village. It's very similar to that sort of what it's done to them. But it's interesting looking back at these and seeing like I'd be pretty pissed if I was seeing dudes and dudettes like this for sure. But it's like kind of in the back pages now because we had the appearance of them in Silent Hill 2, and the rest, as they say, was history, which I think is kind of a shame.
But only the nurses in Silent Hill 2. The doctors were a good variety. It just that parasite on their back, I was like, Jesus, you should get that looked at since you're in the hospital.
The noises they made were kind of creepy too, and yeah, the noises they made were like, oh, like
Yeah.
it sounded a little too. It sounded like a mix of like a zombie groan and like
Hmm.
a live groan, if that makes any sense.
It's like they were trying
Yeah,
to say
I
something that
always thought
was
that they had
garbage.
like a really like almost like werewolf kind of feel to them, especially like with like the big like arched humpback that they like
Mhm.
always have. Like they're always like hanging down like with their arms,
Like
and especially
Quasimodo
like
or something.
yeah, before they would like charge you. They usually
Yeah,
have like knives or something. It's definitely just like the whole package. It's like,
yeah.
not what you want, the
I-
variety.
Also,
Yeah.
gameplay wise, I could be wrong about this, but I think the doctors have more health than the nurses. That's probably why they don't show up as nearly as often as the nurses.
They don't. Yeah, you didn't really see them. I think
Yeah,
you saw more doctors, I thought, than nurses.
I
Um,
was always running into nurses. Like I found,
yeah.
I don't know if it's randomized and they just both have the same health, but like
I
I've
think there's
fought
only one or two doctors, like, they're usually, like, in the same, like, specific hallways
That
when they're together,
yeah,
and it's, like, one pair on each floor or something like
well,
that.
that does make sense in a way though, because you're more likely to see a nurse than you are to see a doctor roaming around in a hospital if you're just
sure.
going in on a casual run or whatever. At least from my
right.
experience.
Yeah.
So like, I guess it makes sense. You see like you see one doctor or two doctors or whatever, which is no unfortunate, but no, it does. It can't. You can't make sense out of it.
The symbolism is pretty easy to get from what I understand. It's just like Alyssa's perception of all the people in the hospital just having this cancerous state on their back. And it might be also a symbolism of the surgeries that took place there that she might have seen while she was burned. And I think that also makes like perfect sense. It's very disturbing, and I guess that adds to the enemy design as well, because when you see that thing back there, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
That and
Yeah.
the parasites also like it resembles how the nurses are how the doctors and nurses are acting under the control of people like Kaufman and the other members
Yeah.
Because
of the order to kind of keep Alessa, under control. And because of that, she views them as like being controlled by the growth on their backs and also how they move. Like you ever notice it when they walk, they kind of look a little bit like lanky marionettes, like those kind of
Yeah.
puppets.
Yeah.
And you have to
Um,
think though too, like from Alessa's perspective, these are people coming in to do what they're supposed to do, run tests and change her bandages and make sure that she's clean and not getting infected. And but from Alessa's perspective, these are just other monsters coming in, and what kind of torture does she have to expect now? So yeah, the symbolism there is really good, especially with the puppet marionette kind of feel to it. That's exactly what they look like. They just are kind of arms just dangling there, and they all have scalpels, which I thought was interesting too.
Yeah, it could also be that just, like, the angle that she would have always seen them, like,
Bent
operating
over.
on her or, like, bent over, like, doing something, like, it's definitely, like, really iconic to, like, think of them, like, constantly, like, bent over, like, doing something or, like, in the middle of surgery, like, to always have, like, that scalpel on them, to, always have, like, some kind of like bubbled up appearance based on like what they were wearing. Because I'm sure that she always had to be in like a clean room or something
Yeah.
with her burns, and just like what they must have looked like to her from like her point of view.
Anyone else have any opinions on this? No?
Oh, that's
I
good.
think it was all summed up, honestly.
All right,
Yeah.
we can move on to the hang scratcher. We referenced this earlier. This is the green bug thing that you see in the sewers. It looks like some weird praying mantis or some weird reptile. It's just strange. Like in the sewers, I think that's the scariest part in the game because the sound design is very, very quiet for some reason, and it's like you know shit is going down in the sewer. So I ran past them all the time when I got the opportunity. What do you guys think of the hang scratcher?
Gameplay wise, they were kind of a little bit annoying because they would come up from they would come from the ceiling sometimes and hit you there. And not only that, when you're in the sewer, the radio doesn't work, so so you have to actually listen for them.
Yeah, that was the thing that increased the tension for me. The radio doesn't work. I don't know where these enemies are, yet I hear them slowly creeping up towards me, and that was a really fucking scary feeling.
Which makes sense. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of the game again. It's another case of the game taking out your comfort zone. There's no radio, and it's kind of like you're entering their lair now. You're not just fighting on the streets or in buildings. You're going into where they live, and you've got to survive where they know what they're doing, and it's like their advantage.
Yep, and it works because they look like generic little lizard things that would probably fit in like an RPG or something too.
Yeah,
Way
I
they
mean, I don't
look.
think they're the most like outrageous design wise, but again, they don't need to be. In an area that's pretty dark, I wouldn't expect them to have like a crazy design at all. It's
Yeah,
unnecessary.
simplicity. It's
Yeah.
necessary. It's a perfect example of less is more.
Exactly.
Yeah, they make a perfect like sewer monster, something that you'd only see like
Right.
down in the depths of the sewer. But
Yep.
the mumblers too appear there too, and
Yeah.
there
Which
are a couple like like areas where if you go down that area and it's basically like a dead end, maybe the map's down there for the area, or like it's just like a first aid kit, and it's like I hate going down there because there's a mumbler like when you're like going down, and then on the way back they just start piling out of nowhere, where it's just like, oh, there's one creeper, oh no, there are three, and then if you can even get past them, because that's usually like even like having played the game multiple times all the way through, that's somewhere where I'll die. Like, and it's like, that's like either like the first death, or it's like, something where it's like unavoidable death. Like at
Yeah,
that point, even as like a veteran of the game, like
that's one of the
that
hardest
part,
parts. Yeah, I
yeah,
know
it's
exactly what you're talking
just
about. There's like three of them that come show up out of
yeah, and
nowhere.
you've just come off of like killing like a mumbler or two,
Mhm.
so it's like even if you had like an easy time with them, you like turn around and it's like, oh, there's three of these guys and they have longer reach than other enemies. They like have different rules where they can either like be on the ceiling or just, come at you like in some like unexpected way. Like they're fast, and just getting around them is so much more difficult than other enemies. Or it's definitely like a pivotal part of the game if you like go down the wrong twist and turn of the sewer.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the Scratcher? I mean, the symbolism is obvious. It's
Yeah.
apparently it's funny because they symbolize her love for dragons, yet they don't love Harry. You got to deal with that. I thought that was
Yeah,
just pretty
well,
hilarious.
They are just warped versions.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes
Hey.
it funny. It's stuff that she also appreciates coming into fruition and turning into monstrous creatures.
Right. That also I think it kind of plays in with another like childhood like thing that people think about when they're kids is like what's down in the sewer. You don't know. Like when you're kids, always hearing stuff about like in movies about like monsters and sewers and stuff. That's probably because I noticed a lot of monsters and stuff also kind of base themselves on a lot of American culture, like scary stuff, which is why a lot of American horror movies are referenced. I think that might also fall in with the romper. No, not the romper. The hang scratcher is because like when you're a kid, you hear about all these movies and TV shows about or stories in general about monsters in sewers, but you can't tell because the sewers are dark. And when you're a kid, you have no real way of going down there. At least
Right.
that's what I'm thinking. Anyway, that's my speculation, at least.
Hmm.
I could relate 100%
Yeah.
because I mean, you wouldn't want to be down there either. It's a lot of human waste. It's a lot
Well,
of
yeah.
creatures. You don't want to be down there.
I'm pretty sure most kids knew not to go into the sewer, though.
I'm sure somebody probably got curious and fell in, and I feel sorry
You
for
know
you if
people
you
are.
did. I'm
You know-
sorry for you if you did. I really apologize.
Right, right, yeah, because it's a thing that happens in reality, unfortunately.
Uh, the last one, the last creature here is the creeper, and it's a giant mutated roach. Gameplay wise, these guys are a little bit annoying when you're in like a singular room and it crawls up towards you and bites you and you can't see shit. At the same time, they are very, very easy to run past. Outside of
Yeah.
like minimal annoyances, you should not be struggling on this enemy at all. I don't even think I died to them at least once.
I know.
They're just bugs.
Yeah, they're
Well, if
bugs
you
like the size of rabbits.
if you have a low enough health leaving the sewers, like literally like out of nowhere, I just died, and I was like, "What was that sound? What happened?" And then it happened again when I went back to play it through. I didn't die, but I was like, "Oh, there's these." I didn't know they were down there on the ground. Like you can kind of see them, but if you're moving fast enough, like you just kind of ignore them.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
true.
have to fight them.
I do
Yeah,
enjoy
'cause-
stepping on them though because that animation
Yes.
does exist. That's the greatest.
And the sound that they make, I don't know why, but the sound they make when they die is very satisfying. I don't know why.
yeah, they always had like just that like path too that they would. It's like they like ignored that you even were there sometimes, and they'd just like
Yeah.
turn around and start going back the other way. It's just like you were just there to trip me up.
The symbolism is very obvious. Insect fear. I would be
Yeah, but
fucking.
a lot of people don't like bugs in
I,
general.
I don't like bugs either, especially the size of softballs. I'm like, if I saw something like that, bro, I'm completely bailing out. I'm nuking the house and I am gone.
Damn, like Ren would say, "Yeah, I'm blowing up the house. It isn't worth it."
Uh huh.
Bug's house at that point.
Anyone else
Yeah.
on the creeper before we move on to Silent Hill 2?
But at least I will say, at least they didn't pick bats as generic enemies, since there's already way too many games with that.
That's true.
Right. They also appear in Silent Hill 2, but they don't really have any symbolism in that game because they're leftover psychic energy from the first game, from what I heard, is a lore thing.
Yeah,
Because
Or
that's
maybe
they
they
looked
just
in
didn't like bugs.
yeah.
that too, but that's a lot. That's a thing a lot of people have.
I mean, in
That's
all
why they were in. That
honesty,
was why they're in the second game.
yeah, in all honesty, Silent Hill, the place itself could be considered a creature of chaos because it's taking different forms and changing the environment as it wishes, depending
It's
on who's there.
it's debated on if the town itself has a consciousness or not.
All right, I guess we can move on to Silent Hill 2, and the lore gets very deep and extensive from here. The first
There we
enemy,
go.
yeah, the first enemy we have is the lion figure, and honestly, appearance wise, this is where like things get amplified and it starts looking even more creepy and sinister because it's like an enemy with a straight jacket from what I noticed, but it's all skin, and they have this weird opening in their chest where they spit out like acid. Gameplay wise, I didn't find them to be like super annoying, but it does kind of get really, what's the word I'm looking for, irritating when you're in the hotel because that's when they start ganging up on you, and I'm like, oh my god, on hard
Yeah, is
mode
that
this is,
where mostly close quarters as well? If you go into halls and whatnot, or they're
yeah,
only like,
it's close quarters, so they're mostly in the hallways. In the rooms, I think they have the mannequins.
They have a couple in some of the rooms in the apartment.
Oh well, shit.
Yep, and some of them appear in the really tiny, like the bathrooms sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
not even that. They hide laying on the ground too, and they'll dart out from under like dark corners.
Yeah.
Or under
Yeah,
cars.
that's the thing too. Them crawling on the ground, like you guys heard that noise they make, right? It's absolutely
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, it's part of Akira Yamaoka's excellent sound design. Like the guy's a genius.
He had actually a lot of influence from 90s industrial rock, and you can see a lot of that influence in Silent Hill, the first game, and then now in 2 as well. Like a lot of the droning metal sounds and things like that. And that sound that the lion figure makes, like the first time I saw one run out from under a car, and it's that like it's almost like you're winding up a toy, but it's also like someone crawling through gravel at the same time. It's just this weird sound.
Yeah, it is
Also-
very unsettling.
Funny little, cool little bit of background about the lying figure is when Sato was designed, I think it was Sato that did this monster. When he was doing monster designs, he saw like I forgot the name of the person who worked there that did this, but like he would come in and he would have his hoodie on and he would have his hands in his pocket and have his head hunched over where he's bopping his head around because he's listening to music on headphones. And that was kind of the partial inspiration for the lying figure, because when you looked at him from the distance, he kind of, when he was waving his head around walking down the hall, it sort of looked like when the lying figures are just standing there, shaking their head around.
This thing also apparently has like cheeks too. That was really weird.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these
Why
enemies are
are you looking
sexualized.
down there though, Ren?
You have to if you notice it in the first cutscene, because it's like a back
Yeah,
shot of
Drew.
it. Yeah.
It's right in the camera at the point, so yeah, it's hard not to notice it at that point.
Ren be like double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Shut up.
A lot of the monsters in Silent Hill 2 have very deep sexual undertones to them, and
Yep.
a lot of them represent repression or how James perceives certain things. This is a good example of one.
Because the lying figure represents kind of James in this situation where he's trapped and helpless, kind of like how a lying figure looks like a human being wearing a straitjacket, only this one's wearing a straitjacket made of what looks like flesh.
Yeah, they said in the Book of Memories that it's supposed to represent the feeling of confinement, which is why the skin is like all embedded in the sides, and the creature looks like it has arms but it can't move. That represents James's confinement to the city and what he did to Mary.
It also can represent Mary as well, kind of how he perceived her. And I did see this in a video a long time ago. Someone kind of broke down some of the monsters, but they were saying also like the acid that it spews out could represent some of the things that Mary said in her illness, lashing out at James as well.
Yep, which is the
Spitting out venom.
poison.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
thought it was
Poison.
just because she was sick or something.
Oh no,
Well,
that
that
counts
too.
too.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, all of this is valid because there's been so many interpretations of these creatures that I can't even disagree with it, to be honest.
You could write
Yeah.
essays on these creatures practically.
Yeah,
No.
I've definitely heard it from like either side of times when it was either Mary, or people have said that it could be James himself, or just anyone who was a part of it at all. And just
mean-
that the vomit could be like, anything that was held within. And it's like, it's all about like just, something being like trapped within and souring until it comes out. And
Yeah.
that vomit just being whatever, like feelings, words, or just like any kind of negative energy that's been like festering on the inside.
Yeah, it can work. It can work both ways depending on like how you perceive them after playing the game.
All right, but next up is the mannequin, and let's talk about appearance first, because from what I noticed, it has two legs on the bottom, legs on the top, and this monster is memorable for all the wrong reasons, because I remember walking into
Yeah.
the apartment room and I saw Pyramid Head was getting it on from what it looked like to me with these monsters on top of each other, and I'm like, what in the fuck is happening?
Me, like, yeah, because obviously you mentioned that scene. I think for a lot of people, firstly those that have played Silent Hill 1 and moved on to 2, I think this is the point where it's like the devs kind of looked at Silent 1 and said, I see what you're doing there, you're kind of being kind of cute and kind of playful. Let's actually show you what we can fucking do.
Like Pyramid Head was doing.
And they went to town.
Because now they have the PlayStation, the power of the PlayStation 2 to
Exactly.
render that.
Yeah, and now we've got fancier graphics, we've got more more interactable, designs and more stuff we can do. So let's just absolutely go balls to the wall. And this, and 100%, the mannequin as a result. I mean, everyone thinks obviously Pyramid. We'll talk about him shortly. But it's like the mannequin and sort of like other bits and pieces. Like it shows like this game, they went super, super graphic because they could, and it was the direction to go. And yeah, that scene especially was like the point. Yeah, this game's gonna be pretty crazy.
I just didn't
Funny-
understand. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, I was just gonna say something real quick. When I was looking at a video talking about like when Team Silent was citing sources for inspiration, I think it was Sato again. I forgot which team member said this, but they said that that the look, at least the appearance of the mannequin monster, was supposed to resemble like various Japanese monsters at the time. At least that's what Sato wrote, but he didn't. I don't think he cited specifically what Japanese monsters it was supposed to look like, because people asked him if it was actually inspired. Because there's like this Van Gogh painting that sort of looked like the mannequin monsters, but he said no, that's not what that's from. I think it was a Van Gogh painting. It was either Van Gogh or I can't remember the other guy's name.
It's just weird. It's all weird looking. It has like two legs for like arms, no head. Is very fucking disturbing. So I think if they wanted to accomplish their goal of this thing representing some sexual frustration while at the same time looking weird, they definitely succeeded, especially with the apartment scene. That being said, these enemies gameplay wise, I really didn't find them to be much of a problem because the handgun took care of everything. It's only when they get like close and they do that leg swipe, and that's kind of like whatever.
I just use the freaking blunt object. That would be more effective than using a gun because you can save your ammo.
That's true as well, but I never take chances with the plank because the reason why it takes a little bit to wind up. Once you get the pipe though, it's easy street.
Oh
Yeah, the pipe is.
Yeah, respect it.
Pipe is probably the ultimate melee weapon in that game. I think, other than the Buster Sword, but that's like a weapon you should not be using unless you're being a jerk. And the chainsaw, that's an unlockable weapon.
The
I
great
was gonna
knife?
say, I will say that Silent Hill 2, they definitely like left that like room where if you get really good at it, you can switch between the weapons. So if you're running around with the pipe and you can get like one good hit and then switch to the up to the sword, or just like, either one where you can get one good hit with the sword and then switch and finish them with the pipe. Like sometimes it's just like really easy to do. Like you switch between the weapons like instantly.
You can do that on the PC version. There, you can get instant weapon swapping on the buttons if you want.
Yeah,
that
where
is
you're like
nice.
the arc is like just been completed, and then you can switch to the other weapon and like almost instantly like hit with it. Or the combos for certain weapons like just work out really well. And it's just like for enemies like this, it's super easy, but
Symbolism is
later
pretty
on,
obvious. Symbolism is pretty obvious. It's just legs. James was looking at some nurses, checking out them legs, and therefore we have this enemy. It's not really a lot.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
James is a leg man.
the next one is like sort of similar to with the bobblehead nurse. I saw this enemy the first time and I'm like, it's interesting. It has like no face and it's just like a pair of tits because that's the whole sexual frustration thing going on with James. They're slightly a little bit more annoying than the mannequins because I felt, especially in the hospital, it's rooms where it's three of them, and when they get close with the pipes, it starts to get very hectic on hard mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when you get the shotgun, you find it, and then it gets a
Just
little
start
bit
shooting them.
just start shooting because that's the only way you're gonna get out of that.
I kind of saw the bobblehead nurses as also James' perception of their inadequacies trying to diagnose and help his wife. And not only was it like him being as a way for him to see you can see his sexual frustration, but also because like he was dealing with his wife with this illness that no one could figure out what was wrong with her, and then she eventually dies. But the way they move their head around, it's kind of how the way I would see it was that he would see them as just not being able to do their jobs properly.
Yeah, he was very like focused on his wife trying to actually survive this illness. I would imagine that the no face thing probably includes that. Like he doesn't care, he just wants her to get better, and that's it.
Right.
What do you guys think of
And-
the bobblehead nurse?
I think they're pretty intimidating villains. I'm looking up some more pictures of them. As you're talking about this, fun fact: if you notice on the face, like if you see a close up, like the face kind of resembles a fetus in a weird way, and I think like Masahiro Itoi like pointed that out on his Twitter a while back, and how that was supposed to be like at least that part of it, the face was supposed to have something to do with like a possible future, with Mary, because when you're married, what's next step after that? Children.
Right.
And obviously obviously like you said, the nurses represent James's either fear or dislike of them, because they've been trying to, they and the doctors have been trying to, treat Mary's illness, and they never succeeded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't blame people for also saying it looks like it represents sex as well, because they're a little bit scantily clad when you look at them. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, that's exactly what they are too.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
Totally.
fun fact: they were actually a last-minute addition to the game.
Really? No.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yep,
Yeah.
they were included way later in the game, and but yeah, they got the unbuttoned shirt, which you can see the cleavage, so that kind of goes with the sexual thing too.
Yeah, that's why I said.
Miriam,
Go
she
ahead.
ain't just like a nurse.
Yeah, that's why I said most interpretations of Silent Hill 2, they're all valid because it's a lot of them. They run deep, and because there's so many interpretations, they're all interesting in my opinion. So I guess we can move on to the man himself, the man of the hour, Pyramid Head.
Pyramid Head.
Woo.
Yeah.
My
Uh,
favorite monster ever.
Gameplay wise, he can be, well, like most bosses pursuing you and stuff like that, he can be annoying, because I remember getting one-shotted by the Great Knife after, trying to let him
Yes.
leave, and he turns around, he's like, no, bitch, not today.
Nah, get here.
I love that so much. I just love fighting him. I like being scared by him. I just can't think of many bad things to say outside of some frustration with getting one-shotted, but that's par for the course.
James.
Hmm.
He's very intimidating. Like you would think, looking at him, like the way he walks. Like, I'm sure you've heard how intimidating his footsteps sound. The thump, thump.
I think the
that-
part that gets me is the dragging noise of the Great Knife. You hear that as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, that's a sound that anyone will dread hearing.
It's just
And if-
heavy metal on the ground. It's like, yeah, I would not want to hear that in a dark hallway.
Yep. There's a couple hidden things that are on the monster that are like actually rendered. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but did you know that there's actually a tongue rendered for Pyramid Head on his model, and you can kind of see it in like proper angles and stuff?
No.
Yeah, there's like a tentacle that comes out of like if you noticed on the corner of the triangle hood he's wearing, that he has over on his head, or as his head, I should say. There's a little hole in the corner, and if you play the game and you have him in the right angle in the first fight where he can lift James up in the air by his neck, like if you have him pointed just right at the camera, you can kind of see the tentacle kind of poking out of that little hole a little bit, and it's supposed to be like a tongue. He says tongue, but he doesn't really know what to call it other than maybe a tongue or a tentacle. But either way, it makes that scene that you see literally seconds before that boss fight you have with him even more unsettling, because of what he was doing to that monster and the position it was in.
Yeah, he was like sitting on them, humping them. I'm like, what is the first time I seen that, and then the second time where you fight him near the flooded stairway, and he's like sitting on a lying figure. I'm like, what is
like
going
he's-
on?
Like he's got it all hunched up and he's bent over on it with like its butt pointing in the air, and that's where that's where its like face would be if it had one, if Pyramid Head had one.
Whatever
And then
they
after,
tried to accomplish with
yeah,
this game in terms of being shocking, they succeeded with Pyramid Head, in my opinion,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
For making him look scary.
and
making
what he
him look
does in the
and
game.
act scary.
Yeah.
Oh well, on top of that too, unfortunately, it's so scrapped. But they were going to have him be unscripted counters, so he pretty much was going to be the nemesis or this X of Silent Hill 2.
Yep,
So
kind of like Mr. X in the remake, where he just follows you everywhere.
I'm good.
so
I don't
so
even-
was there a reason they scrapped it?
They couldn't get it to work.
So for technical limitations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
I mean, he's
Gotta-
scary enough. I don't need him following me from room to room.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially like through the hospital or something. That would have been
Oh,
terrible.
Yeah.
Anyone notices that he changes weapons from time to time?
Yeah, he
Because
gets
Yeah,
a
Sponge,
spear.
yeah.
he gets a spear, he starts poking you.
Yep, and yep. As soon as you when he only has the great knife when you see him in the apartments. After that, he starts carrying a spear. In fact, you can even pick up the great knife and use it as a weapon. Oh, speaking of the grape knife, have you noticed that it looks just like that knife that Angela hands you earlier in the game, only it's like covered in rust and obviously like 50 times bigger? You ever notice that?
Yeah,
No.
Like, I wonder if that was intentional or not.
Angela's case is more focused on like suicide, and it does
Yeah.
kind of look very similar to that. But Pyramid Head himself is like adjudicator, like he's there for James's
For
torment
James's
and
punish.
judgment. Yeah,
Yep, his desire for punishment, because he saw, it was me when he was vacationing with Mary. He saw the big painting of him of that one that he comments on, Misty Remains of Judgment or whatever, that was in the
Yeah.
Historical Society, and that stuck with him as a big representation of like a force of punishment that he secretly desired for his crime because of what he did.
Trying to think. Well, the design is also. Did they ever explain that giant triangle rusted shape on his head?
He has a like a head and a face under that. It's just
It's Illuminati.
Either
Yeah, like-
that, I think people said that actually was his head. Like, that's the head of the monster itself.
well, no, he actually has like a face.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of Pyramid Head lore, and a lot of it is either like, just Indian myth lore where they have like, just Crimson Pyramid, like,
Yeah,
and
because
different like, interpretations of like some of those things. Some of it's supposed to be like punishment of just like a lot of the time, like any like iron mask is usually like a punishment for
Right.
like either like English and European like torture. And then
Yeah.
there are just like obviously like throughout like Silent Hill and different lore that they've purported for it. Like if you haven't played Homecoming and gotten one of those endings, then that's definitely like one that they added as canon for the series of just something that can become and be Pyramid Head as part of that,
Yeah.
which I know I definitely like moan and groan for that, but that's like
Yeah.
one thing that it is technically like canon for the series. So
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't see this, but I'm actually face palming as I'm hearing that.
I
I'm sorry.
know
I
It is what it is,
don't.
though.
in the series, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
there
when
and should be
Konami
discussed.
started to interfere a
but,
lot more with the lore.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think people.
Definitely.
I think people really don't like the idea of Pyramid Head outside of Silent Hill 2 because they keep referring to the notion that he is James's monster, so it doesn't really make sense for anyone else.
The thing
Yeah,
is
he was
that
never
they
meant
kind
to
of
be though, but since he got so popular by the
Yeah.
fandom, like they keep adding him in and just lore.
yeah
Mark's not
because
doing
it's
that.
so yeah
if
because
he was
it's so
supposed to be like
popular.
personal punishment for James,
Yes.
but then
Yeah.
as we've even like said ourselves that sometimes things seem to be residual in the town where it's just like kind of energy that's left over from somebody else hanging about, where it's like you could possibly see it in that
It's.
direction, and
I'll
that
be
makes it
honest.
a little bit easier to digest in
Yeah,
another game.
it's one of those where like if you want to write a plot to explain something, as ridiculous as it might be, you can do it. And it feels like it's one of those like we know it doesn't really make a lot of sense and it shouldn't happen, but they're gonna go ahead and do it, and they'll find a way to justify it,
Right.
whether you think it makes sense or not, which is
Yeah.
the way it is, unfortunately. I mean, I don't blame them for wanting to get more Pyramid Head because it was all the rage.
Marketing.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the rage. I mean, it was already, again, from a Resident Evil background, it's hard not to have played this the first time and think, okay, this is their answer to Nemesis. Whether that's fair or not is totally debatable or not, but that's what it's got to be, unfortunately. And if they want to get someone in or something into a game where it doesn't really make any sense, you can just write some side plot to try and explain it, and it can be as wishy-washy as you want. But ultimately, that's what they chose to do, and unfortunately, everyone's got to go ahead and live with that now.
Yeah, I think that basically the last thing I want to say on that is I think people believe first and foremost that it was really good in the second game, and then when they start putting him everywhere else and it really didn't make as much sense or it didn't resonate with other people as much as two, that's when they started to be like, I don't like the fact that Pyramid Head is just showing up for no reason, and if he is, I don't like it as much as the second game. I can kind of see that opinion, honestly.
Yeah, it kind of demystifies him, and then having to explain why he is kind of ruins it.
Yeah, it's like the appearance. It's like his appearance in Silent Hill 2, which is why you only see him like a handful of times. But when you do see him, it's like a big momentous thing where you're always on edge about what this thing is gonna do to you if it catches you or if it kills you or whatever it's gonna do. And then just making him appear more and more in future games just lessens that impact.
Anyone else on Pyramid Head?
Yeah,
But
I'm good.
I think everyone got their rant out of the way about that.
Yeah, I'm glad that came up because that was actually a debate for the longest time about him making appearances everywhere else. So I'm kind of glad that came up. Anyway, I guess we can move on to a monster. Well, it's very disturbing. There is no debate that this is a pure abomination, and that is the Abstract Daddy.
It's
Yeah,
I mean, as screwed up as some of the stuff with Pyramid Head and other things, I mean, this probably is like one of the worst, like maybe in the series when you think about what it is.
Yeah, one
I
of the
agree.
darker monsters because of what it represents in Angela's backstory with her father.
You know something interesting though? This might be headcanon though, but this is like I'm going outside the source a little bit here. Apparently, the abstract daddy that we see is different from what she sees. Because the one that we see, one half represents Angela's stuff, while the other half represents James' stuff or with his wife.
Yeah, there's a lot about that because like there's a point where there's a scene, isn't there, between the two of them where like they're apparently in the same place, but the scene completely different. That's one seeing fire, one isn't, and this sort of thing. So yeah, man,
He saw the fire actually. He can see that, but
he noticed it. He even felt it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the whole thing about everyone's Silent Hill is personalized for them or something.
Oh yeah, that is true though. But it also shows that some people can have common standing, which is seeing the fire. Explained it because when she said you can see it too. That's pretty much his home. That you can't share the same type of experiences via whatever reason.
Which is why, like, before Jane, like the first thing Angela says, just as this monster is about to attack her behind a closed door, is "Daddy, no," which probably means when she sees it through her eyes, it looks more like her father in a way.
Anyone notice the room? Like, it's a lot of pistons going back and forth. It's fucking crazy.
That was supposed to be another piece of symbolism towards the intercourse that Angela was forced to go through, unfortunately.
Yeah, out of the three characters that James meets in the game, like her story in particular is the saddest. Like she is
Mhm.
contemplating suicide the entire time James is talking to her. You know, there's the abstract daddy, and you find out from reading text that it's her trauma manifested, basically, that's right there in front of him, and James sees something's different than she does. And then the stairway, you know, where it's hell, instead of her actually descending, she's going up and the fire is following her. And basically, for even defending herself from the trauma that she went through, it's she's still punished for it. And it's just really a sad thing. That and abstract daddy is like, I agree, it's the worst of the monsters in this
Yep.
game once you understand what it is.
Yep. It's hard to
Yeah.
talk about the abstract daddy without talking about Angela's dark history.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
you can't mention it without her being molested. I'm sorry.
oh, yeah, I was just gonna say that there's other writing on her background that's said when she's mentioned her brother and mother, who she's also looking for, that they may have also been abusive toward her, where her
Yeah.
mother just was one of those people who just either ignored that it happened or basically told her that it was her fault or that she deserved it even, and that her brother had repeated the things that her dad had done to her even after his death.
Someone refresh my memory. Did she kill them both or just the dad?
Just a death from my
Just the
recollection.
dad, yeah.
She killed the
Okay.
dad. She says in the beginning that she's looking for her mother and brother, implying that she's possibly going to do the same thing to them.
Well,
Or
the
that-
brother definitely deserves it. I'm not sure if her mother abused her or anything.
Well,
Father.
no, but she kind of was apologetic towards it. Oh, well, not apologetic.
So-
Fuck, what's the word for it?
Next
Just
She
allow
pretty
it
much,
to happen. She allowed
Yeah,
it
she
to
pretty
happen.
much let it happen. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
And,
yeah, so she probably feels some sort of spite towards her.
and other representations of fire throughout the game kind of like give you that kind of like, had she been like an arsonist herself? Was it her brother? How did that all tie in? And if the arsonist was the one who didn't do the crime that they were jailed for, like things like that, like start to come into play for
Mhm.
either like the poem that was read or other times
Right.
when fire
Well,
like appears
With the
around like
nooses, with that
Pyramid
puzzle.
Head or
Well-
the other characters.
Well, that the result of that puzzle really changes based on the difficulty you play. Like you could play it once and it's the arsonist, play it again, it's someone else.
Yeah, and there's only one where it's the arsonist, so
Yeah, I forgot
we're
what
like in the
difficulty that is.
poetry.
That's my favorite puzzle, by the way. I just want to say
Yeah.
that.
The
Yeah, and
appearance.
that's where that like symbolism of like fire throughout the game really like changes like the feel when you like play on that difficulty for puzzles. Just like when you get to Angela's like part, it really like changes the feel to know that like, you know, that person like was innocent, and then she's walking into the fire like, and like that, like, you know, the way it ties it and just
Right.
totally like changes the feel.
The appearance says it all for the creature itself. Two bodies doing things that, well, at least one of them shouldn't be doing. And then there's the mouth that is at the bottom of the creature, and it's just really fucking weird. It's like a bed of skin, and what like I said, what they were trying to accomplish with the visuals and trying to interpret things and trying to also show the symbolism to the player, they succeeded, but it is something that is readily terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the appearance and how it factors in the gameplay and everything?
Well, as soon as I found out what it was, I had no qualms about utterly destroying the damn things with the hunting rifle. That's for sure.
Oh, me neither. That was the
and-
most satisfying thing.
Yep,
Yeah.
and how they looked like, you know, they were in a bed made of flesh and everything was like, I'm not gonna lie, it looks I mean, as like non-threatening as it looks because of how slow it moves, it is still intimidating because of that factor.
Yeah, and that first cutscene where you see them in the room with the flesh and the pistons, that's kind of hits you immediately, I guess, to what's going on there. But then they also show up later at the hotel, and it's almost like, that it kind of, it's a representation of how trauma can follow you, and it kind of gets a little heavier after that for me anyway. But the introduction of the monster was pretty good, and the visuals really came across really good there.
Oh yeah, it's just weird that the first time you fight them, it takes so much ammo to kill the damn thing, but when you fight them later on, it's like maybe two shotgun blasts, and you could stomp it to death.
Yeah, the shotgun takes care of these things rather quickly. For the interpretation of what happens in the following scenes after, I think it hits harder when you beat the actual boss, and then Angela scolds James for being the way he is and hating men and all that stuff.
After one thing. Yep.
Yeah, and then she starts like breaking down, and it's really, that is a very powerful scene because it's all fucked up. It's all because of her past and stuff she couldn't control, which is why she ended up being this way.
Yep, you could see how she's on her hands and knees, you could tell she's struggling not to puke or something.
Yeah. I think it was, for what they did, despite how dark it was once again effective, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we can move on to the flesh lip. This is a hanging creature that you see when Laura locks the door, and pisses me off each time she does that scene, and then they emerge from the ceiling and they try to strangle James. What do you guys think of this creature in terms of gameplay?
Well, not gonna lie, when I first saw it, I couldn't stop laughing because the lips kind of reminded me of the plant monster from Little Shop of Horrors. So when I first saw it, and I saw it like grab James by the neck, I couldn't stop laughing. I just want to say that.
Yeah, the first appearance was good. I always wondered if Laura was actually considered a monster, simply because of the things that she does to James. Like, she literally tries to kill him, and I don't think she knows that it's, that's the traps that she's taking him to are actually traps. She's just trying to torment him. But the fact that she's doing that by itself also proves that she could be a monster. And then when she locks him in the room in the Brookhaven hospital, they just come down. Like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's got to be, how he sees Mary. Like, where the mouth is, it would be, if she was laying in the bed, that would kind of be where her reproductive organs would be. And then there was like a hand at the top that kind of sticks out, and that's kind of how he sees her illness and her being hospitalized in a bed. So I thought that was really interesting, and the fact that it just tries to strangle him, and how he kind of perceives her, where he also wants to keep her quiet because the mouth is constantly moving. Like, the whole thing is really good, and them dropping out of the ceiling like that just kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I thought that, once again, I agree with everything with the appearance and how it looks and the symbolism behind it, trying to shut Mary up and showing these creatures as some sort of interpretation of that. At the same time, gameplay wise, I found them to be easy. I don't know what it was, but it's like, once I finally figured out that I could just run into a corner, equip the shotgun, and kill it, that was the easiest thing ever. And I think in that room you fight multiple versions before you're actually let out.
Yeah, I think you fight like 4 of them in that little room, and they kind of move somewhat on a grid, so it's kind of easy to predict their movements a little bit. So gameplay wise, they're not really that threatening if you just take your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Controls will screw you on that, though.
Yeah.
I always had 2D controls for that. Hot take, but I like Silent Hill with 2D controls.
I never tried that. Like, I know it's diverging, but I never tried the 2D controls at all.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
Interesting. Next, we're going to move on to the Mandarin. And I don't think you fight this enemy. From what I am aware of, you see it under a grate sort of walking, and it has like these giant like flesh lip arms. And apparently, the story behind this for Symbolism is that they're doomed behind these gratings for eternity. I think Ito said it best that he believes these creatures are trying to signify and warn James before it's too late. He also said that they are going to walk until they fall into some unknowable darkness in the future. What do you guys think of the Mandarin? Gameplay wise, I think we can isolate that out because they are just there for shock value and nothing else.
Yeah, just
Actually,
for
they do attack you. Actually, they do attack
Really?
you because yeah, 'cause you know how they're hanging below the grates when you walk over them.
Mhm.
They have like little spikes that come out of their little arms or whatever, and they deal damage to you.
I think I never noticed because I'm always like in and out of that room in particular. I just run quickly to the doors and then I'm out.
Yeah, if you can,
Yeah.
yeah, if you just bolt it right over them, they don't even have time. I mean, they'll try to attack you, but they won't succeed.
Interesting.
Yep, and it's always, and I always thought it was freaky how like they were when they were clinging onto this grating and like below them was absolute darkness, like you couldn't see like a bottom at all. So it makes you think that when these things, like when you finally kill them, because when you finally kill them, they just let go and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. Maybe it's because of my fear of heights or something, but that always made me have like a cold feeling in my stomach that these things were just gonna fall forever into this void that you cannot see the bottom of no matter what, and all that's between you and that void is that monster and this grating.
I also
Well-
like go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, it can also show you the bottomlessness of guilt, which is what kind of James feels
Yeah.
going through
That's-
the game.
Yep, that too. That probably has to do with the monster and how when they fall into bottomless void.
I like
Yeah.
all the interpretations behind it. They also say that it might represent James's psyche falling into the darkness by a thread, and that's it. If it falls all the way, that's the end of his sanity.
Yep, that's true. I can agree with that.
Drillbit, you were saying something?
Hmm. Well, no, I was just agreeing there.
Okay. Otherwise, there's not much to it. I mean, what this looks, it looks like another just lumbering, disturbing creature. Although, as I said, I don't pay much attention to it because I'm usually in and out of that room that they appear in, and I don't waste a lot of time in there. Any thoughts on the appearance of this thing? No?
I think they look like those other monsters that are in that they show up in 3 a little bit later on.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's the one with the giant arms that roams around in the
closer.
the closer. They roam
Yeah.
around in the mall.
Right. I'm wondering if that was intentional, like, or if they just recycled part of the model for it or something. Because that's one thing I noticed about them. Though you can't really see them that well in the game because they're behind a grate and there's no real way to zoom in the game.
It might be an asset flip.
Right.
Yeah.
If someone wants to rip the 3D models from the game, please let us know so we could see them.
Hmm. And there's pictures too in this doc. Like I said, this doc is going to be available to all the people on YouTube in the description. If they want to see how the monsters look, just click on the names and you can see them. I guess we're going to move on to the final section, which covers Mary Shepard Sunderland herself before we finally get to that Silent Hill 3 creature analysis segment. I thought the symbolism was obvious. Clearly being strapped to a bed, that was her final resting place, being killed by James with the pillow and everything. The creature looked very similar to the flesh lip, except for the fact that it wasn't just a hulking mass of flesh. It was just Mary, like, and her body was sort of decayed and transformed and all blackened, which was weird to see at the end of the game, but it made sense. What do you guys think of the symbolism behind it?
Well, depending on the ending, it's actually like more times it's actually Maria, depending on the ending you get.
Yeah.
I think
You mean Mary? Oh, wait.
No,
it's-
there.
it can be Maria depending on what ending you get.
Yeah, there are
More
times.
times it's Maria.
Yeah, there are times where James will signify that is Mary, and certain endings where he signifies it's Maria.
Yep, and the personalities match depending on who he says. This is obviously, just James's guilt from killing Mary, either manifesting as actual sadness or as him getting over it, depending on the ending. And the moths that she shoots out as an attack are semblance to moths in a Japanese, because I think moths in Japanese culture represent like rebirth or something, which is something James is wanting his wife to come back all
That's
through most of the game, depending on the ending, really.
I think that's funny because that's also an ending where he tries to revive her in New Game Plus.
Yep.
Yes, that's my favorite ending.
Yep, the ritual ending, I think that's what it's called, where he goes to where you got to collect the items.
Yeah, I like it because you don't know if he's like successful or not. It's like ambiguous.
Yep,
Yeah.
you don't know if you don't know if the ritual worked, didn't work, or created another monster.
You were saying something,
It's
Black
also
Devil?
really interesting. Oh,
No, I tried to get Black Devil because he was saying something. You can go like right after him, Lily.
mhm.
Oh no, I was just like she. It was just an interesting way to end things. I never really thought it was her though. I always thought it was the town, Silent Hill, pulling him back to be punished for something that he did.
I
And then
agree with
just
that.
use Mary as like another way to punish him.
Also, you can go ahead, Lily.
Oh yeah, just to say that definitely like from an enemy perspective, there aren't very many that speak ever, so the fact that she does like, have voice acting and like say things is really like significant like throughout the series because aside from Orphan, there are less than 10 enemies that will speak at all. So that's like pretty significant. And it's another argument for people who like to say that the nightmare was Mary's instead of James's, as like we saw like with Alessa, like creating the other worlds for the first game and like through like the third. It's just another twist to say that as like Alessa was like part of like the monster and the machine that created the other worlds, that some people believe that it was actually Mary that created the other world for the second game, and that's like always really interesting to think of like different enemies from like her point of view, where it's like it could have not even been James who was like thinking of the nurses, but her from like the hospital bed seeing him like look at a nurse, and where it could have been totally innocent, it was her that twisted it into like just the jealousy of like, oh, look at him, look at her, like sort of like feel. And like, point for point, like you could go on for every monster with that, but I'll stop there of just, you know it's just there are so many different like sides to like Mary and Maria, like, and the whole like thing about like her like character that's just really interesting like as you go through, and just like the changes for that final fight depending on the ending or like things that you did while you were there. It's just really interesting.
I tried using the shotgun there, but the rifle was a little more effective for that fight. And I actually died there the first time I got to the end because I didn't realize that you had to like finish her off because she's like on the ground calling his name, I think, right?
Yep, she
Yep.
is.
She lays there and calls her name repeatedly till he calls his name repeatedly till he deals the final killing blow.
Which is him repeating it again.
Mm-hmm. It's like this is what led you here in the first place, and then there's a bunch of preceding endings that you can get based on that, which I thought that was awesome. I thought it was all well executed when they did this, in my opinion. Once again, as a final boss, there has been a lot more tougher Silent Hill bosses, especially in the third game, which we'll get to in the future. So I guess we can convert over to Silent Hill 3, with the first monster there, and that is the closer. I think Jojo mentioned that it looks similar to the Mandarin, yet it follows you
Yeah.
around in the mall a lot, and it can hug you, attack you, etc.
Yep, those big arms can swing out long. That's what makes them deadly. Is those big arms? They're really long. They can hit you from a distance, and sometimes little spikes come out of the ends, and they do extra damage that way.
But yeah, I always just ran away from them because of their size.
Yeah, though they are a little bit slow when the to attack them. Like I've managed to kill several of them with the katana, no problem, because it takes them so long to. Like you gotta trick them into lunging at you and then run to their sides and just hit them a couple times with the katana or your pipe, whatever your melee weapon is, and repeat the process. Just wait for it to lunge before you get close, because if you just get close, it does a little spinning attack and that kind of hurts.
Yeah, that's what I did. Like, because the mall, the strip at least, is a little bit wide, you could like squeeze past them and they'll never really hit you if you're fast enough. At the same time, I don't like when it's like two of them and they can box you in. I had that problem before when I was like exiting the mall to go and figure out how am I gonna do the dog key thing. Two of them bucks me in and they tried to kill me. So that was pretty just like annoying to deal with gameplay wise.
Damn.
As for their interpretation, apparently they were conceived with the idea of representing impregnation. Labias are on the hands. The theme of God and birth is very central to this game, as it was with the first one. It's just a little bit more explicit because of the engine and the monsters they're implementing, which I think that makes sense for interpretation. What do you guys think about it for the symbolism?
I think it really represents consumerism, honestly. Like to me, the arms, I've always seen it that way, that the arms kind of represent either you see people carrying, their purchases through the mall or like, purses or backpacks or anything like, and you always find them like outside. The first place you encounter it is actually inside of a clothing store in the mall. So it kind of, to me, that's what it kind of represented. And then later I kind of realized that it's also, like you had mentioned about, birth and the description of what they look like the mouth, the opening from the end representing labia, and it's just kind of I always saw the consumerism thing first.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true because they are in the mall and a lot of people shop in there and a lot of people do things in there, money and all that stuff. So I can see that too.
And I don't
yeah.
know if this has anything to do with symbolism or anything, but if you notice the body that when you meet the first closer in the game, you notice the body that it's like, I guess, eating or whatever. It's actually Angela's body from Silent Hill 2. They just recycled the model. I mean, it's obviously not Angela. They just recycled the model.
Oh,
I just
Yeah,
thought I
unless
like,
yeah,
yeah,
but you'll watch people try to interpret that in some weird way.
I mean, I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. Usually, when you get asset flips and you're like, "Well, this was in the previous game. What are you trying to do? Is this really Angela? Is she like dead now and she's being eaten by the closer?" I can see people thinking that. Although they did say the storyline is like isolated from two outside of just referencing like some locations and story beats that were from the old gods.
Lily, were you gonna say something?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, just more along like the consumerism line and into like, personal things for like Alessa of just like the enemy does look like a lot of like old dolls, like the way that they used to make them, where they would have big puff heads and hands.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people have always thought of, me included, of just the way that like the hands like are like super useless, or it's like even if you're trying to like bat away, like if somebody like how Dahlia, they've like shown depictions of her like abusing Alessa, like hitting her in the hallway at their home, of just like how your hands just like you can't like do anything to like block attacks from stuff like that, like.
Right.
And that it's possible that even if like Dahlia would try to like apologize by like buying her a doll or something, like you see like in her room toward the end, that it doesn't undo like anything, and it almost makes those dolls like make you like resonate more with the abuse of just like it's like a symbol of it. So that's like more into like some of like where they've said like where Alessa's headspace with those monsters could be.
So for the double head, it's basically a dog, canine dog, manifestation of Alessa's wounded state when she was impregnated by God. The creature has burns, scars, and medical wraps to signify this, which I can see now that I look at it because the wraps are covered all over the dog. As for gameplay purposes, I found these enemies to be a little bit annoying. I felt like what they tried to do is cram you into a room with them, and then they like to get behind the player a lot when I play Silent Hill 3. There are times where you can run easily past them as well in the subways. I think that was like super easy because it was so wide. Yet other times, if you're crowded in a room with dogs, then you don't want to deal with them. That's how I felt
Yeah.
about them.
What's like the first melee weapon you ever get in 3?
Don't
The
you get
knife.
the knife? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got the shitty ass knife. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But not too long after that, you get the pipe.
Well, that's
I thought
actually
the
great.
pipe was the first melee weapon. Oops.
No, it was the knife. And then I'm not sure. I know eventually you get a gun and you start shooting closers. It's not
Yeah,
too
you
long
s-
until you get good weapons.
Yeah, you start off with a knife, then when you meet the first closer, you shoot it with a gun, but then that empties it, and then in the restaurant you find the pipe. I find the best way to deal with the double heads, since like you said, they can like run around you. Beef jerky. Like you get a lot of beef jerky in that game. If you drop that on the floor, they'll try to go for that, and you can sneak past them or use that as a chance to kill them while they're distracted.
It's
Yeah,
not.
as far as gameplay goes, I didn't really. They were really. It's like you say, Ren. They like to gang up on you, but they would always put you in like close quarters because you saw them in the mall. So there wasn't always a lot of room for you to dodge in the mall and some of the places that you were in. But then they just were a huge pain in the ass to get rid of. Like they weren't even like a nuisance. They were just like difficult at times if there were multiple of them. And did anybody else notice that where she got the key from in the mall, there's one of those dogs that they cooked? It's one
Yeah,
of the double heads.
yeah. She
Oh,
says
yeah.
it's a cooked dog, and I'm like, they eat
That's
this thing now? Like, what's going on?
Yep, they find it on
Right.
the. She finds it on the table in the restaurant. Funny
That's-
enough.
That's kind of disgusting.
It's like, what's going on? Yeah, that's like super disgusting. I'm not sure if she fished the key out of the organs. I assume that's what they're
I
implying.
think it was inside the dog.
Like it was in the rib cage or something.
Yeah, that's
At least the key didn't melt or anything.
definitely no good. The item placement in Silent Hill 3 and what you have to do to trigger certain things, it's definitely as puzzling as the first game, in my opinion, if not worse. Because I had times where I didn't even know what was going on, that I need spray to clear out a certain area and mixing chemicals and all that stuff.
One thing I always found a bit strange with the double heads is I've always kind of interpreted and always felt like these kind of enemies, sort of dog enemies in horror games, have always kind of like sort of mid game. You sort of you play the game, you're getting used to things, you take on kind of slower, weaker enemies, and then the game's like, okay, you've kind of got the idea of what's going on. Now we're going to throw something a bit more serious at you, and then it will throw like the dogs, the Cerberuses, whatever the hell else. Yeah, here in Silent 3, you're fighting these guys within what, like 10 minutes, if that. Which was always a bit off-putting to me. It's like you get the impression like you're being thrown like really into the deep end of things. I don't know if anyone else agrees.
No, I totally agree with that. Like,
Yeah,
So
I got it. So
let's move
Are-
on then.
are we done with this one? Good. All right. Fine.
Yeah, I mean
the
it's a dog
nurse.
and it's annoying. Got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the nurse. Let's start with gameplay first. What do you guys think of fighting the nurse?
I think they're
mean, they
kind of. I think they're annoying because a lot of them carry guns. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they
definitely
do.
do.
Yeah, they're gonna put you down, right, with another needle. Bang,
Yep.
bang.
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
does a
but,
nurse have a gun to begin with?
I don't know, but for some reason, some of the nurse monsters in Silent Hill 3 have guns, and I think it's also like kind of a carryover from Silent Hill 1, since 2 is kind of a sequel. 3, my bad. 3 is kind of a sequel to 1, and
Yeah, it's
of
direct
course
sequel.
yep, and the nurses in 3, I don't think there's little parasite things on them like in 1, but they still
No.
kind of move kind of like marionettes when they walk. I don't know if you noticed that too, like in the first one.
I
So
mean,
I think that's part of a carryover from that, because again, the plot's more focused on the memories of Alessa slash Cheryl slash Heather.
I just assumed that Silent Hill was in an open carry state. That works for me. There's my one witty line for 90 minutes. Hooray!
Well, there are a couple of references in the games about gun violence in America, so that could be one of them. Just pointing that out.
Well, and
Yeah.
that goes back to 2 as well. Finding
Yeah.
a gun in the
I
shopping
mean,
cart.
they also
Yep.
could have just wanted to make the enemies more annoying.
But
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
But
found them easy to deal with. Like 3 hits with the katana and they go down, and they attack so slowly that it's easy to. Again, as long as you're not fighting one that's got a gun, in which case you got to get behind a wall or kill it with a gun first.
yeah,
I would take a bullet and just go just bash him with the pipe. I was like, you're not gonna shoot me.
Respect it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about appearances? Because truth be told, they're not that drastically different from the last two.
Yeah.
Nurses.
Yep, they
Yeah.
just don't have the little thing, the little parasite thingy on their back. They just look like almost undead nurses because of how pale their skin is.
yeah, yeah. But I guess there's nothing much to say. They're just they just look like nurses.
well, I mean, it's a little different from the second. It's a little less obviously sexualized. It's not really the idea. It's more kind of, I think, more of like a haunting feel to it. And again, it's a bit more like kind of just shady and oppressive, whereas something that kind of is resembling, like everything the hell happened obviously with James. So I think there's little minute differences, but yeah, ultimately a nurse is a nurse is a nurse. So
Yeah, I wonder if this is more of a less of
Yeah.
projection
yeah,
versus Heather's, because Heather knew about the occult and she slightly understood why they were always moving around and changing names. This was more of a less's projection again. It's like was mentioned previously, it ties back in the first game, except that Heather's trying to understand this other side of herself. And yeah, it's totally how Alessa felt. Why they have a gun though, I still haven't put that together, because it's like
They're
They
tired
just-
of our shit, man. That's all.
open
Yeah.
carry and you're done. You don't have to think about
Yeah,
ever
I
again.
guess they figured, yeah, that's the quickest way to kill them. Just use a gun.
Yeah.
That probably explains why you're finding handgun bullets like on tables and chairs and in school desks and stuff in Silent Hill.
Could justify it, yeah.
Yep.
And it's not been mentioned, but Lisa Garland, the nurse from that took care of Alessa, I mean, maybe that's how she felt about some of the people that she take care of, or even Alessa herself. Like maybe she thought it would just be easier if she just, put a bullet in her and ended her suffering.
It's probably somewhere in the middle of all this, most likely. It's probably bits of this, bits of that, will kind of blended in. Yeah.
Yeah.
We did talk about symbolism just now. Right? Kind of zoned out.
Yeah, the symbolism's kind of a carryover from the first game in a way.
Yeah,
Oh,
look,
there he is.
no, I was just gonna say real quick. I think it was mentioned that Lisa did want to kill Alessa. At the same time, she couldn't because grief and all that stuff that happened. Therefore, she sort of let it go. But she was in on taking care of her because I think people brought it up that Lisa was on drugs. Therefore, she was under the influence and she could not stop until that ultimately killed her.
Yep,
Right.
she was. Yep, Kaufman got her so addicted to White Claudia that was all she could do. That's partially why she was kind of twitching towards the end of Silent Hill 1. I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but it kind of fits with the nurses here a little bit.
It does, yeah. That's why it's worth bringing up. But you guys can move on.
All right. The Fukuro lady. I will say that right. I guess we could start with appearance. Why not? What do you guys think of this little enemy?
This is
Um,
where Heather's in the elevator, right?
Yeah, this is one
Yes.
of those enemies that's always out of the boundaries and they can't really attack you or you can't hurt them, but they're just there to freak you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really fight them, so they're just there for the environment.
Yeah, like there's one scene like in the like I had to stop and look at this when I first saw it. I think it was the Fukuro lady. She's like hanging on the ledge of something, and in one hand she's hanging on the ledge, and in her other hand she's got like something that looks like a baby. Like maybe I mean, obviously it didn't have a face, but still it looked like it was shaped like a human baby, and she kept trying to pull it up over and over again. And that freaked me out when I first saw
Yeah.
that. Fukuro's like, I would say the Fukuro lady's kind of like the nurse symbolism, only kind of multiplied on the nth level because they're always doing really, really freaky shit off in the distance. Like you can't make out what it is, but you're like, oh, when you see it.
That game had a lot of weird things happening where while you're descending in a cutscene or ascending on a ladder, there were just things in the background constantly. And I remember I didn't know what the name was, but I remember the Fukuro lady, and that was kind of creepy. Didn't she have like a giant eyeball too coming? I couldn't tell if it was coming out of her chest or how she's positioned there because it's so quick.
Good question. I think there's like a little music video that was made by like the creators of Silent Hill where they would like have Fukuro Lady and Pyramid Head like doing stuff together in a creepy room.
Hmm.
Like look it up later. It's really freaky looking. Like
Yeah,
it's
I'll
on
have to do
YouTube,
that.
obviously.
And she likes them big. So yeah,
Yeah.
nothing you can do about it.
And chunky.
All right. I guess we can. Do they have any gameplay significance? Because I don't remember.
No, I think it was the only time you
But
see her is in the elevator.
Gameplay
yeah,
significance, no, because again, they're always often like out of bounds where you can't get to them and they can't get to you. But they're animated.
All right. I guess we just talk about symbolism then. If you guys didn't talk about that already,
I just did. I
is
think
it?
there was
All
a
right.
lot of like black leather on her, so it could be a type of BDSM. It's kind of sexualized. I do remember seeing parts of that, but I don't know how, because you don't know anything about her or what she represents other than maybe birth. But I couldn't really see anything that was there.
If you
It's possibly it's I'm sorry, Ren, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, if you take her model out, because people have done this, she's apparently sitting on top of a monster. And the first time I saw this, I was like,
Not sitting.
she's just like riding on top of, not sexual. I'm talking about like, you're riding a dinosaur or something like that.
Right.
She's sitting on top of it, and I guess maybe that symbolizes control or birth. It has to be one or the other, because with the way this is going on and the theme of the game, I think it has to be some sort of control. Also, Vatael is like sort of torturing this creature in the background, and you can see it when you're descending the elevator. And I think that's also a form of like the gods saying that we want this baby out of you, Heather. We're gonna get it by any means necessary. Here's the symbolism of you descending to the depths.
Hmm.
Other
Yeah,
than
we
that,
looked
there's
all this
there's
stuff up.
yeah, other than that, there's nothing really official from Ito. He just sort of said it's there and that's it. Like there's a couple of monsters where he says in Silent Hill 3, I didn't mean to have any symbolism behind it. It's just there. And that sort of goes
yeah.
double for the next question actually.
Yeah. I guess we go ahead and talk about that one if you guys done with this lady.
No objections from me.
All right then. Numbody. a small dinosaur creature, and this one doesn't have any form of symbolism, which is interesting. So, what do you guys think it could represent? And I can't front though. It looks like a tadpole or a human sperm cell just walking.
I think they intended for it to kind of resemble like
It's
like don't
obviously an early reference to Among Us, JoJo.
oh shut
Oh,
up.
okay.
It was obviously a. I think someone said that it might be a reference to the like about how birth there has to be a sexual act involved, and I think due to the way that those monsters were kind of walking, like I said, I could be wrong about this, but I think those were supposed to be like symbolic of penises or something, penetration, not penetration maybe, but like penises for you know the first act of copulation. I think that's what they said. Don't quote me on that. I could be completely wrong, but that's just what I'm getting from it.
They
Um,
do have very phallic-like appearances.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Like that's why I made a references. Like it looks like that, just a little bit extra.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they come in two different sizes weirdly enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, yeah.
Not touching that one. I really want to.
And
All
I
right,
mean, I don't really see any real symbolism with it. I think they just wanted a creepy monster.
They were
yeah.
definitely that, especially when you run across the bigger ones.
yep, and
Oh, they get bigger. They.
yep, yep, and when you hit them, they don't like when you do damage to them, like some monsters when you damage them, they kind of wince in pain. These things don't. They just keep walking as best they can until they take enough damage to fall down, which goes for the name numb body.
All right. What about gameplay perspective? How do you feel about fighting these damn things?
I
The
felt like
head,
finding
but
them.
it's annoying, very annoying.
Yeah,
I find them real easy to deal with if you have the Morning Star because that is a good long range and a lot of damage. So like if you swing it just right, you'll hit the at least one of the little ones and they'll like take enough damage to fall down and then you could finish them off by hitting them over and over again because in that game like the boot doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to die like the big stomp. So like at that point you might want to hit them like one or two more times just to be sure.
I
It's
know
been
it's
a
using
while
laser
since
sword.
I've played it, but I don't think I ever had any real trouble with them.
Yeah, they were kind of slow as long as you weren't directly in their face, you'd be fine.
If they ganged up on you, they were tough. But other than that, like they're pretty easy to take down. I think.
Yeah, I never had to worry about using ammo on them. I always used the Morning Star or the katana, which I think the katana was like the best melee weapon other than secret weapons.
Nothing beats the power of magical schoolgirl, Heather.
Yeah.
That was like an unlockable costume, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Costume and weapon.
I remember I had a cheat code book that had all of the costumes where you'd enter. I think you'd had to enter it in a typewriter or something.
Interesting. I guess we're done talking about the numb bodies, right? Good. Okay.
Yep.
Insane Cancer, aka Twitter Incarnate.
I was gonna say Discord moderators, but okay. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I think that
Shots
person.
fired.
No, I'm
I
kidding.
ban you later. That's good. But yeah. How you get? Let's talk about appearances. How you guys feel about the Twitter monsters?
They're freaking. Those are one of the first monsters I saw that legit freaked me out because of that snarling noise that they that they make.
What's that?
Yeah.
These or the Twitter trolls?
The
Oh,
monsters,
Oh shit! I
the
remember
monsters in
these.
the
Okay,
video
jokes then.
game.
Looks don't
But,
they look? They kind of look like those. Forget what those things are called from Left 4 Dead.
the
Bloaters?
boomers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they the way they look and the way they were legit intimidating because despite how big and fat they were able to run pretty fast. And that snarling noise that they made always freaks me out every time.
Yeah.
Well,
I
that and
love-
they wouldn't actually attack you; they would like fall on top of you. I think that's
Yeah,
what they were
and
just
then
throwing their weight on you.
Yep, they would
Well,
attack
what
you.
was that? An insta kill or just damage?
No.
You?
It
No,
was
it just hurts.
damage.
It just hurts.
Okay, I
Yep,
assume
they
getting
either-
squished would have gotten you insta-killed.
Yep, they either fall over on you or or if they're from a distance, they try to charge at you, and they can run pretty fast for big fat thingies.
Damn.
Yeah, the appearance is just a super fat gray blob, and it can move like a track star sometimes. I think in the subway, it was the worst example because there's a lot of them, and you kind of have to pivot between the rails in order to like shoot them when you're inside of the subway car, which is it's kind of funny how it worked considering they tried to like jump up on me and sit on me, and I just shot them in the face with a shotgun, and they just fall over. It's the most funny part in the game, and I think that's totally unintentional. That's how it operates, though. As for
funny thing when you first get the shotgun, that's when they appear. Like as soon as you pick it up, you hear them snarling off in the distance.
no, that makes sense because I that gun is pretty much made to put them down, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's the symbolism, which is once again, I think it's repressed feelings of self-hate. It's also equivalent to thinking that there's a corrupt cancer within the world and how Alyssa views things, which is why these things are blob-induced cancerous and big. It makes sense, honestly.
I agree with it.
Yeah, it makes sense with the way it looks and how it operates and everything. I totally go with it.
Yeah, because she views the because like Alessa felt that the authorities that were watching over her in both the town and the cult were corrupted because they view themselves as trying to do good, yet they're doing murder, sacrifice, rituals, and all that crap. They view it as like a corruption, and corruption often is associated with disease and cancer.
I also think that Dahlia kind of forced all that onto her, so that might be an outward thing of her worldview coming into fruition.
Yep, that too.
All right, we can move to the next enemy, which is the pendulum. And once again, this is one with no symbolism, so we don't have to worry about that bit. However, we do have to worry about the gameplay and how the monster looks.
Yeah, good God, the noise this thing makes irritates the crap out of me.
I know you're talking about. The sound is
it's
annoying.
all creaky and stuff, kind of like mashing metal.
Like a bunch of rusty machinery just trying its best to run.
Yeah, I bet if you got cut by it, it would give you tetanus.
Oh yeah, no, that actually does quite a bit of damage. It's one of the more like frightening enemies gameplay wise, because as soon as they see you, as soon as they notice your presence, they make a beeline straight towards you, and you have to hope that you can shoot them enough times for them to fall down or die before they hit you. And when they hit you, they do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah. Did you notice though, the way the character model for this thing is actually pretty creepy? I mean, it's wrapped up in some kind of like restraint, and then it's missing its legs, and I think all it has are its forearms that the leg walking blade things are attached to. This is probably one of the creepiest looking enemies in the game.
I just found a picture of it now that you mention it. It looks like but other than the spiky legs and stuff, it looks like a torso with its arms and legs cut down and held upside down, like the head.
Yeah.
Like the head is down. It's got a blade on top and the stubs on its legs. I think one of them looks like a face in a weird way. I'm looking up a picture. Oh, it's got two heads. Holy crap.
I like stopped it after I killed it to kind of looked at it, on the ground when I was first playing the game, and I don't know why that's just a really creepy looking monster.
Yeah. Looks surprising. Yeah, it's got some human characteristics now that I found a picture of it.
Gameplay wise, I would say this thing, it annoyed me very much. Just like, not only does it make a disgusting sound with the scraping blades, but also if you are not fast enough, you will get knocked down by them. And this happened to me like more often than not. If I'm running like a straight beeline and then it's coming to me from the opposing side, I would get knocked down if I'm not careful enough. I think.
Sorry,
Hmm?
sorry. Go on.
No, I was just gonna finish off and say that the problem is definitely mobility with these enemies. If you're not careful, they will immediately just completely stun lock you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the problem as well, because obviously they can effectively fly. And the issue then you have is, then obviously you're crossing around because you fight them obviously in the darkness, and you know the ground you're walking on can be a bit maze-like. There's lots of odd ends that sort of go nowhere, and you're crossing all these, and they're just climbing. They're basically crossing over all these chasms. So I found quite a few times you just end up getting just swamped out of nowhere. You lose track of them. You get hit. You get stun-locked. You get pushed over the edge or whatever else. These things were for me really infuriating. Like probably the worst enemies in the game.
Yeah, I think so, because like you said, like sometimes you would hear them off screen, so you wouldn't know where they were. And the first place that you meet them is in the mall, and all you have is like a handgun and some melee weapons, and then trying to come at you from off screen, and like you said, they can fly and jump to you from one side of the screen that you're on to where you are. They're really, really annoying to defend.
They weren't slow either. Like once they got a lock on you, like those things could bolt.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely the worst enemy in the game by far, bar none. As for yeah, I hate him in general. As for symbolism, there is no symbolism, so I guess we can move on.
Yep, I even found the quote where he said that there really is no symbolism. It's just there to be an intimidating, dangerous enemy.
That is amazing.
I'm willing to bet that they got tired of making symbolism, so they say, "Fuck it, let's just have some monsters end up like cool or disturbing and call it a night."
There you go.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. It makes the podcast a lot shorter. All right, next let's move on to the Slurper, and this is a sexual beast, considering the description. I didn't know.
Can we talk about the symbolism first, at least?
Yeah, I didn't know there was like animations where it tries to lift Heather's leg or something. That's like super weird.
I have no idea this.
Yeah, there's even a funny thing, since you mentioned that, there's like a special slurper that you fight in one of the hallways where it's literally wearing S&M gear. I'm not making it up. Like you could look at the body and it's got actual S&M fetish gear on.
Oh yes, I remember this. Yeah, I remember this now.
Yep, I think there's only one slurper that's like that.
Yeah, it's it's hidden away a little bit, and you've kind of got to go out your way to come across it in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things are freaks. Like there's no underestimating that terminology. These are monsters that are fuck machines. They're wearing S&M gear.
That's some description.
This is like, there's no other way to describe it. These monsters are super sexual. Their heads look like phallus. It is so weird when looking at them.
They even look like they're wearing like a thong for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be weird, but I'm looking at its ass here and it looks like it's got a thong on. I'm not trying to be weird, but it's true.
So as you said, I'm not trying to be weird, you made it weird.
I get but okay, if that's how you want it. I'm just pointing it out because it's
you made it weird.
I
don't know. I'm not King Shabby, man, but it's okay. It's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that and the simple fact that they actually crawl around on their hands and knees the entire time.
Crawling in my skin.
They've got feet. It's like, why aren't you walking? It's like you're just gonna crawl around, and they kind of look like a BDSM aardvark, really.
Yeah, with the way they got the snout, and I mean their legs look kind of normal. They look like they could normally walk, but apparently they don't, and they got these arms that look like clubs.
Yeah,
They also look sewn on too, so that's like another like.
This monster's got a lot going on here.
Yeah,
it really does.
I think this monster is like definitely an interpretation of sexual assault. It just has all the motions going for it in terms of that.
Yeah, part of like it gets a sexual part of Alessa, I guess, of Alessa and Cheryl, I guess, processing, because they're older now, so they know about the more adult things that go on and acts like reproducing and stuff, and then that's how this thing came to be.
As for the looks, the only thing I can say about it is the head is super fucking weird, and I just noticed that the hands aren't normal. It's like stumps.
Yeah.
That's just it's super odd. Like no fingers at all. I just thought that's like super strange.
Well, it looks like there's something sewed over what would where their hands would be.
Oh yeah, you're right
I
about
see
that.
the sutures. I didn't even notice that till you pointed
Yeah,
it
that's
out. I
what I was
see the
talking
stitches.
about.
Yeah.
Oh, good eye.
It just looks like something's like sewn on there, like
Yeah.
and when the sleeves are up that high, it's like that's not something you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, like if those were there, it's probably making you think that if those weren't there, it'd probably have like more human like hands, which would probably make it look freakier, in my opinion. If it had human hands. What the hell happened here?
I guess we could talk about the gameplay. Any gameplay sort of opinions on the Slurper?
They're easy to kill. They're not
They
really that
suck.
challenging.
They
Yeah,
suck.
they're not. Yeah, they're not really challenging. They move a little bit slow. Like you could deal with them with like one of the with like I always deal with them with melee, like either the Morning Star or the
Yeah.
Katana. They go down pretty quick.
Yeah, I just bashed them with the pipe. I use the pipe a lot in these games.
Yep,
I
or just run because they move kind of slow.
Yeah.
Any other opinions on the Slurper before we move on to the last one for Silent Hill 3?
It's freaky looking.
Yep.
Ah.
All right, I guess we can move on to Vatael. So we don't fight him, but there is a lot of symbolism behind it. He is an otherworld servant who is directly influenced by the will of God, and he's trying to make sure that Heather is protected for the rebirth of God. I noticed one thing though. There's these cutscenes where if you die in like certain places, he'll take the body and run off. You guys seen that, right?
Yes, that's happened to me in the mall. It's happened to me in a few other places too. Yeah.
Yep,
So-
because he cares about the birth, and as long as her body is able to do the birth, that's which is why he's dragging it away.
This one, he has a lot of symbolism just because of his name. It actually translates to servant of God. So that's why you see him when he tries to recover Heather's body after she's been killed. It's so they can start the whole rebirth, reincarnation thing over again because they still want this to happen.
Yep, which is part of the reason why whenever you see him in the background, he's always turning a valve over and over again.
Yeah, he does that on the elevator when I forgot the part where it happens, but he is turning a valve all over again, and then there's also parts where he's like torturing the Fakuro lady. He's a lot of background presence and is very menacing when you see him. I think my only real gripe is that you don't encounter him otherwise outside of what we see, but I also think that makes him a lot more intimidating and interesting because of that. He's like
Yeah, you
this
don't-
game's like pseudo Pyramid Head in a sense.
Yeah, you don't really know why he's there or what he's there to do.
Yep. Any other
He's-
opinions on Vatio? Jojo?
He's a very simple. I mean, I like him. He's the perfect example of a monster who's very intimidating, despite the fact that you never have to battle him or never encounter him. He's always off in the distance, and I forgot who said that. Like when you die, he in certain parts he carries you off into the distance.
It was me.
Yeah, that was yeah.
So
Like that-
what
that
happens
makes him
after
very-
that? You just get a game over screen or something?
Yeah, you get a game over because obviously you're dead.
Ah, damn! I thought he was gonna revive you for a second.
Oh no,
Nope.
he's not doing that.
Yeah, and there is a lot of like lore like that we'll talk about, just like that he's got like part of like a coat kind of similar to how Pyramid Head has it like at his
Yes.
waist,
Yeah.
Yep.
and that a lot of like pictures of like either like Saint Nicholas as you see him in the third game, or like in other like depictions of just like the older photos of like people who were in the cult have like those sorts of coats, and then doctors also. So there are a lot of guesses as to who in like the cult Valtiel could be, and if there are like ties to either Pyramid Head or any like specific like named characters like throughout.
Actually, I think it was stated that it was Valtiel's like power, I guess, influencing Walter to commit the first part of the 21 Sacraments in Silent Hill 4 before he used the soup spoon on himself in the prison cell. So I think Valtiel possibly played a role in that too. Like he said, I did it, but it wasn't me, as he was like going crazy. If you read the memo, and I think 4 talking about that, I think that was referring to Valtiel doing that.
Yeah, he has his own cult. His own
Yep, his own section of the cult, like the Yellow Heads or whatever they're called.
Yeah, that's where it splits red and yellow. And there are like a lot of like different texts, like either like within like the Silent Hill universe and then just from like just folklore stories in that area that point to specific things that were part of those rituals. But it's just like, you know, speculation after a point, and how much you want to like attribute to like stuff that's going on like in Silent Hill that could be. And like all of the Walter stuff is like so interesting in that way that it's like a lot of what goes on with 3 is what started that, where they branched out and they have like the potential that a lot of what's going on with like the other world is a clash of Claudia's other worlds, like trying to like, you know, like influence stuff that's going on with Alessa's other world. And
Mhm.
it's just really interesting as like Walter goes into that, and just how many other people could have made in other worlds, just like the process for that with the cult.
Are we done with Vatio?
I'm done.
All right, we have
Yeah,
to
I
get
think I'm done too.
we have to get Black Shadow to do his outro.
Yeah, I don't like leaving early. It's not like me, but it's very late here, and I've got to be up earlier than I realized, which doesn't help. So yeah, now it's much appreciated having you all here. But yeah,
Yeah.
the rest, of the rest of the podcast is good as everyone else. You can find me over on Twitch at black_shadow_993. On YouTube as well, Black Shadow 993, and also here as well. We've got plenty going on the next couple of weeks. We've got watch parties of Infinite Darkness. We've got more podcasts with Resident Evil as well. So I'm sure I'll be poking my head into those. Should Renegade Operative actually let me for some reason?
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Yes. All right then. Have a good one, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Hey, man.
See ya. Okay.
Okay, I don't think you heard me good.
What'd you say?
I said Black Rock.
No. Okay. Well, thank God he's gone then. That misconception is not on the podcast. Well, it is on the podcast, but he didn't hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Silent Hill 4. This one is a bit easy for me. So the first enemy is the common one, which is Ghost. A ghost will chase you around. They'll try to put their hand in your chest, and you can't kill them. Gameplay wise, what do you guys think of Ghost in Silent Hill 4?
I gameplay wise, I hate them because you can't really kill them. You can only knock them down, and unless you use a sword of obedience or keep one of those medallions on you, then they just don't come near you.
Okay,
But
from what I
those
remember,
break eventually.
yeah, from what I remember, the Sword of Obedience pins them down. The medallion wars them off for like a little bit until it breaks, and then you could also get silver bullets, which can stop them, stun them for a while, but it doesn't kill them at all. They can't be
Yep.
killed. They can only be pinned down.
So wait, now I thought silver bullets was like a whole werewolf or vampire thing.
I don't know
Well,
their reasoning, but
Silver bullets are used for mythological creatures in general, not just vampires and werewolves.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
commonly used for both of those things because
It
they're
kind of
more
bled
commonly
over into this
used.
game.
yeah.
Fair
so,
enough. So it seems that silver is mainly common for like supernatural stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and it doesn't really kill them. It just stuns them long enough to where you can pin them with a sword of obedience, which is thankful because you only get like I think 2 silver bullets and you get 5 swords, and here's a couple ghosts that you really should pin down because they do extra damage and they have extra dangerous properties to them.
Yeah, I think one thing we definitely have to mention for gameplay is that between the regular ghosts that will give you a headache if they're around you, there's also the victims that are killed in the game and they have special properties like they might be faster, or it's a guy that like lights himself on fire or something,
Yeah.
and once he's
Yeah.
near you, he starts doing even more damage.
Yep, and his damage radius is actually bigger, so he can hurt you just by being further away. And he's one of the ones that you should pin down just because he keeps coming back later on in the game. And then there's the one of the prison guard Andrew DeSalvo who kind of like does that little rolling attack on you, and you have to pin him down to complete the game because he's carrying a key that you need to go further.
Oh man, yeah, I remember that.
Yep, so you got to save a sword and possibly a silver bullet for him because he does not go down easy.
This is one of the annoying enemies in the game, in my opinion, because once again, there's you can't kill them, and there's differing types, and differing types can do differing things. I think there was also one where a guy gets fried in like an electric chair. I forget his name. However, once you see him again, he's not only super fast, he can teleport to your location. It's just
Yep,
a lot of
Richard
stuff.
Braintree.
Yep, Richard Braintree. It's a lot of shit going on with these ghosts that you're going to want to pin some of them, and you're going to want to save your most important items to ward them away. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult when you have to revisit the game again.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about the candles in the apartment too? That would keep them away. But I don't think they were the same ones that would chase you through the world.
That prevents your room from getting cursed, right?
Well,
Yeah.
you can also use them in the normal gameplay where if you set them down,
Yeah,
ghosts
you
won't
can.
go near it until the candle burns away. Obviously, then they function normally.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, the whole well, like that stuff is confusing and kind of adds more tedium for me.
Yeah, I just save the candles for exercising the room if I'm trying to get the better ending.
I'm also trying to think. Well, the symbolism is pretty straightforward. Like a lot of these events are people who either die in the cutscenes. Like I'm talking a lot of them. I thought that the most interesting looking ghost was Cynthia because she looks like she's straight from the ring with the long hair.
Yeah.
Yep,
That was cool.
She crawls around the floor really fast. Yeah, all of them are victors of Walter. If you like, every single one of them are people Walter killed.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the serial killer, right?
Yep.
The one who's essentially the main villain of the fourth game.
Yeah, didn't they like mention him in the second game?
Yeah, he killed himself with a spoon. Yet because of this, he somehow resurrected in 4, and he's still like doing all these killings.
Yep, you even find his tombstone in Silent Hill 2.
Yep.
Exactly.
The next one is the sniffer dog. Once again, a dog enemy in Silent Hill. Not much to write home about, except for the fact that the appearance is weirder because of the long tongues. I noticed that when they were like eating the other dog, they were like using their tongues to do so.
They were, yeah, they were sucking the blood or something.
Yeah, you can, if you kill, that works in gameplay too. Like you can kill any other like big time monster, whether it's another sniffer dog or the double heads. If you kill them and they're nearby, they'll stop and drink the blood from it.
Oh, that's interesting. I never knew they did that in gameplay.
Yep, and there's 2 different variants. The yellow one is considered the male, where it just charges at you, and the pink one, which is considered female, they when they bite at you, they grip at your knee, and and you're basically stuck there until they let go. So the pink ones are a little bit dangerous.
What do you guys feel about the symbolism? It's pretty self-explanatory, Walter's fear of dogs, but I didn't know this like blurb of him going into a pet shop and killing a lot of animals. Like, which note is this?
It was really from when he was a child and he went to that pet store, and like I think like the dogs were barking at him, and then much later on when he went to go kill as he grew up and he did the ritual, he killed the owner of the pet store, and then he took out an SMG and unloaded it on all the cats and dogs and stuff.
Good lord.
Which sounds nuts.
Yeah, and I guess it would
That's edgy as shit. God.
Yeah, I guess him starting off with animals would explain his
Yeah.
serial killer tendencies.
Yeah,
And
because
that's
that's how they.
significant to like the rest of the game too, because it's the Garlands. So like Lisa Garland's family.
Yep,
Yeah,
it was possibly her father.
That is a lot of connection I did not know. I knew James Sunderland's dad. I knew he was in this game. I did not know that Walter killed Lisa's father.
Yep, and Rachel, the nurse who took care of the little girl Laura, and Mary
Mhm.
was one of the people who lived in that apartment complex. Like, she's one of the people who lives there. She even has a stalker in the building named Mike who lives in that building too.
Wow, they did a lot of groundwork for the lore
Yeah,
here.
I'll give them credit for that.
This was a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff was mentioned in 2.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, next enemy as we move on is the Wall Man. And I can honestly say this is, well, he can be annoying gameplay wise because let's be honest, when you're on the escalators, you can't do much but run up and down. That's it. You have nowhere to go. That's the
Yep,
part where I really hated this enemy a lot. Other than that, you could just shoot him too, or hit him with a melee weapon full charge, and you get iframes.
Yep, if you full charge melee swing on them, you can actually stun them like they hunch over, like they've been knocked out cold. And you
Yeah,
can get a couple cheap shots on them that way.
it's not the worst thing in the world, but it leaves you very little room to experiment, and you simply have to maneuver up those stairs like a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mm.
didn't particularly like.
Although it has been a long time since I played 4.
I didn't particularly like this enemy because it just reminded me of enemies that I would see in like 2D, platformers. I was just
Or
kind
like
of like,
RPGs or something, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't like super impressed by this one, especially
Yeah,
with all the other enemies in the game.
it felt a little too generic in my eyes.
Yeah, it's just simply a man coming out of the wall, and he looks like he's covered in candle wax.
Mhm.
It doesn't, appearance wise, this is one of the more boring enemies in the game to look at because there's nothing really dynamic going on, and even the animations, all that other stuff, it feels like it's just not that impressive as it could be. Other than that, I guess we can move on to the symbolism. And apparently, they represent the idea of claustrophobia. Walter was not allowed outside of the Wish House orphanage. Therefore, because they kept him inside all the time, he started getting a fear of claustrophobia that way. And I guess it makes sense because once again, if you can't go nowhere and you're just stuck in one place by like authority, then you're gonna be feeling some type of way.
Oh yeah, considering that it was a prison that he was technically a prison that he was forced into. So yeah, that would it makes sense since it has to you know play on the claustrophobia that Walter possibly suffered from as a child, being locked in those tiny cells for reading the book wrong or whatever, or disobeying.
Anyone else on the Wallman?
Hmm. No.
All right, I guess we can move on to the Moth Bat, or the Hummers as they call them. Honestly, gameplay wise, these guys are not hard at all. Like, you could just hit them with a melee weapon once and step on them, and that's it. They are really
Yeah.
boring to fight, and they are really easy.
They're just meant to be fodder, basically.
Yep.
Yeah, they only get annoying when they swarm at you, and they can swarm at you if you just charge in head on, but they're easy to take down with a melee weapon. I always use the
Yeah.
pipe or the axe.
Lily, you were saying
They
something?
saw the GIF.
Okay.
Oh yeah, just that they're really typically pretty easy. Every once in a while, yeah, you like don't see one, or like there's one left that you didn't get, and you're like just turning around, and it like gets you in the face or something, and it's just like, ugh, of course. But other than that, it's even easy to run around them if they're like spaced apart. But
The noise they make is really annoying too. I guess they live up to their name of Hummers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they sort of resemble bats, like they have bat-like wings and they squeak. But when they fly around, they sound like bees or flies or something. That's really freak. That's kind of freaky in my eyes. And they kind of buzz when they flap their wings, almost like a bug or a hummingbird.
Yeah, the symbolism says they're supposed to be annoying. And the noise you hear in game, like I said, they live up to it 100%. They're also supposed to represent filth and disgust. And that also makes sense because they are not the prettiest thing to look at either. So this is pretty straightforward for this enemy. Way too easy, annoying, and you can kill it in like 2 hits. The interesting one we're going to move on to is the twin victim. This is like 2 figures in a conjoined body, and they have a lot of lore behind them. I'm going to start with that first. Apparently they were kids called Billy and Miriam Locane, and they were children that were killed for the 21 sacraments. And I think Walter killed them with an axe, cut out their hearts. Jesus fucking Christ. And then they formed into this enemy, and it's absolutely terrifying because when I saw this thing the first time, I didn't know what was going on. I think that was the water prison.
Yep, that
Yeah,
you
these guys
first
are
encounter
like-
them in the water prison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they go out to the grounds
these-
later.
Yeah, these enemies here are like easily my favorite ones in like part of the series. Because
Oh, yeah, I love 'em.
they remind me of like a yokai type monster more so than anything else. See two conjoint things together and they're working in sync. Like that's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Yep.
And plus they're
Yeah.
freaking huge.
They're
Yeah,
really
Oh yeah, those
like,
things are
too.
giant.
They're really huge, and they got that other variant where they don't have the cloak and they're stronger.
Yeah, like naked. I didn't post an image of that, but there is like a version of them where it's no cloak and it's like a skinless beast with 2 heads.
Yeah,
Yep,
they're
it
really
almost-
different looking. That
Yep.
version, they have like a different lore usually to them because they're called a bottom, and it's almost like something is like being born from the bottom of them.
Yeah, you could see
And the
another head
head-
at the bottom.
Yeah, where the heads on top are kind of like fused more. It's a really like different sort of look, but they also will say receiver when they are looking at Henry, so
Yep,
it's
if you stand.
obviously similar enough of an enemy, but there's just something that's like totally different about what that thing is becoming once it,
Yep,
it
but
gets
like she said,
absorbed into the apartment world's lore.
if you stand from a distance from them, they'll point at you with one of their
Yeah.
big hands, and you'll hear them say "receiver." Makes sense because in the 21 Sacraments, Henry's considered the theme of receiver of wisdom.
Also, I think he's the last
Yeah.
person to die.
Yep, he's the last one. He's supposed to be the last sacrifice.
Yeah. And again on the 21 sacraments, I think it was the first 10 had to have their hearts removed.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
that was a whole thing about how we had mentioned that before, that the twins had their hearts removed, but it was also like just the other first 8 along with them.
Right, because like all the other, I think like the reason for that is like because Walter killed them at the time of their childhood. He viewed them as sort of innocent,
It was
whereas
part
like
of the ritual, actually. So the
Yep.
first part, so he could make the other world start to blend in, and that was so when he killed himself, he could appear in the other world.
yeah,
So it was so he could create that. So then when he used himself in the ritual, he would still exist, and that's why you only see him really in otherworld representations, like locations. And he doesn't actually appear in any of the like more real world sort of locations.
Yeah, the twins
Yeah,
are a
and-
good idea, a good monster to show you like the lore and how deep it goes. 'Cause
Yeah.
they mention this in Silent Hill 2 when you pick up the article out of the dumpster when you were trying to get the orange pop cans to drop down there, and they talk about Billy and Miriam and how he killed himself with the spoon. So this, when you got to 4 and you saw all this, this was the twins are one of my favorite monsters because that's a manifestation of all of that. I spotted them right away and I was like, oh, that must be who they were talking about. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I like them.
Because they're the only victims that don't turn into ghosts. Because they're so innocent and crap that they like. I think it's because how they're children, how he sort of views them as innocent, which is why they didn't become ghosts. They instead become this reoccurring monster in the game, and why the monster has two like baby heads with baby masks on them. So it's really freaky.
You were saying something, Brendel?
I was saying, like, why did Walter had to kill himself with a spoon of all things? That's just oddly.
That's
It was
brutal,
all he
man.
had, and it was all he had in the prison cell.
Yeah,
So how
it's
would you even kill
contraband.
yourself with a spoon? Like, scoop your eye.
I don't know. It's weird.
Well, it's
I
a
think it was.
common item
it is
that's
lethal?
carved down into making a shiv. So
Yeah, he had to make a
it
shiv.
probably wasn't like a regular like spoon. He had probably like whittled it down so it was sharp.
Yeah,
but
and then
that's the thing though, like they don't say it's a chef, they just say he killed himself with a spoon. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
pictured him
Well,
literally
it's-
kill himself with a spoon.
probably for effect.
Well,
he
he
jammed it into his own neck hard enough to kill him. That's how he.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
right in
gonna
the
assume he
carotid.
probably purposely swallowed a spoon or something like that.
I was about to say that.
It says in the note that the spoon was embedded like an inch or two into his neck and it severed his carotid artery and killed him.
Jeez.
He did it to this
This dude's just shows you how like out of it this guy was. Like Walter was not with us.
Oh yeah, that's what brainwashing does to you.
I don't think we talked about the twin victim gameplay wise.
Yeah,
Not
were
much,
difficult.
really.
I thought they were a little difficult because it's like they would run at you at such a high speed. You had to figure out a way to slow them down before they closed that gap. And then in the prison, around the circular prison cells there, that was kind of difficult because I think you would have one on opposite sides of the circle sometimes. So if you ran too far, you'd run into another one.
Yeah,
When
they're
not only
There
that,
could be like
but,
4 or 5.
Yeah.
but not only that too, like they don't stay dead. They could get back up if you don't stomp them at least once or twice or get something to kill them.
Yeah, you gotta stomp
down.
them in the small
You gotta
rooms
stomp them.
too.
You gotta stomp them twice and wait for the puddle of blood to appear. That's how you know they're dead.
Yeah, that's like the basic rule of thumb for Silent Hill, though.
Yeah, but like it's like with a lot of Silent Hill monsters, if there's multiples on them and they group up on you, yeah, they could be trouble. But if like in the bottom part of the prison area where you're in like I guess the shower area where it's like a small little shower area and there's like 2 or 3 of them in there, that's when it kind of gets a little bit hard. And then there's a part in like the second half of the game where you open a big door and there's like 12 of these things and they're waiting for you. Not gonna lie, I died a couple times on that part.
I think we can move on to the next enemy, and that is the toadstool. Now, it's not much to say about these gameplay wise because they like spout out of the ground and you can either ignore them or kill them. The lore wise, supposedly they represent umbilical cords. I know that's like a later puzzle actually that you have to do where you have to collect the umbilical cords in order to I think bring down the shield of the final boss so you can kill it.
And bring down the shield so you could spear it with the 8 spears.
Yeah, so that might be symbolism of that with the slithering fungi in the game. Otherwise, there's not really much to say, even in appearance as well. They just spout out of the ground, they make that weird slithering noise, and then I kill them, and that's it. Can they even attack you, or I have no idea.
They can damage you if you like touch them, but if you touch them, they go down as if you hit them with a weapon or something. So yeah, if you just walk blindly into them, yeah, they can hurt you.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Pretty weak enemy though, all things considered, since you could just touch it, take damage, but it'll die in the process.
Yep, it dies trying to kill you.
Yeah.
like a bee.
There's also a variant called the white stool, which is same looking enemy, it's just white. That's it.
Yep. Has the exact same function, even has the same sound effects.
Think we can move on to the next one. This is the Trimmer, which is a leech in the game. Okay, so as I remember, the leeches are piss poor gameplay wise. You could just run up to them, step on them, they're dead.
Yeah.
They have symbolism where apparently Walter was scared of them, and some guy was drinking leech water in Wish House.
I think
He
he was
was-
actually made to drink water with leeches in it.
Yeah,
in
that-
in the game.
Yeah, Andrew DeSalvo, the prison cell who abused the kids, he forced a lot of the kids, Walter included, to drink water that had leeches and slugs in it, and that's where the tremors come from.
Oh my god, that's like terrifying and disgusting all at once.
Yep. They're easy to kill. You can just make them fall down. Like, you don't even have to attack them. Just like run by them and they'll fall on the floor, and then you could stomp them, and they're pretty satisfying to kill because of that splat that they do when you squish them.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. All right, next up we're gonna move to the Gumhead. I knew someone would reference the Resident Evil leeches, but
Yeah.
time for the Gumhead. The Gumhead, they kind of look like rompers, where they're like skinless monkeys
Yeah.
almost,
Yeah.
except they have this giant pustule on their chest, and it's like really weird. From what I remember in this game, this enemy, if you get like blocked off, it's really strong, because I think it can knock Henry like on the ground or something.
Yep, and some of them carry golf clubs.
Yeah, so they can just beat your ass to death and play Tiger Woods, and if you get stuck, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Anyone want to talk about the symbolism? Once again, it's also representative of authority, oppression.
Yeah, just the way Walter saw. I think it's also partially the way Walter saw adults as a kid, because when he used to go visit his mother in South Ashfield Heights, there was always that Richard guy who would always yell at him and threaten him and crap. I think that's part of the symbolism of these things.
Yeah, oppression of the system, and also I think he utilized the tools against them, because I think Richard died via electrocution or electric chair in the prison.
Yep, he got killed by electric chair in the building world. Actually, it was after the prison.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yep. And it's also has to do with. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It was also part of had something to do with Pete, because he used to work at the sporting goods store before he started his killings, and which is also part of the reason why some of them attack you with golf clubs. And you can kill them and take the golf clubs too, but they break.
Yeah, I remember they introduced that in Silent Hill 4 as well. Stuff just breaking all the time. But it's
just weird.
It's
yeah,
just the golf clubs that break in 4. Just the golf clubs.
oh,
Oh,
okay.
well then I guess nothing is lost.
Yeah. It's not much to say about them. Just don't get cornered. If you do that, then you can maneuver past them. If they start jumping around, then you can do like the full melee and knock them down. That's one way I did it. I just busted out the axe and I killed them with that.
Yeah.
Yep, just knock them down, then stomp them before they get back up.
Yep. And the last one is the funniest one, which is the patient. This was requested for me to put back into the document by Lily, and we got to talk about the burping, like the gameplay and the burping. Like, anyone found that like super funny when you hit it the first time and it made that noise?
Oh yeah. I couldn't tell you how many times I was laughing when I heard that. I heard the burping noise it makes, and especially when you knock them down the stairs, they burp over and over again as they
yeah.
fall. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's too funny. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Oh, I think what they were. I think I might have an explanation for that sound, though. I think what they were trying to do is make them have like a gagging, like a sound that's kind of like a mix of like a gagging and vomiting sound. And I don't mean to get too gross, but you know when you like taste something that makes you feel like you're gonna puke, you kind of make that burping sound a little bit. I think that's what they were going for. But it ended up sounding like a burp, obviously. But I think that's just what they were trying to do when they were designing the monster.
The monster itself actually looks pretty weird. The first encounter is like they're huge. They're taller than you, and they
Yeah, they're
always
like
carry a
twice your
pipe.
size.
Yeah, but then looking at the character model, I didn't realize that the face is actually made up of different parts of different faces. And then the
Yeah.
stomach actually has what looks like a fetus there or something protruding from the stomach.
Yeah, and there's a hole there too. You notice that? There's like a
Yeah.
like it says it's like when you first encounter Walter in the hospital, he's performing an operation on one of these, and like that's where his hands are. They're inside that gaping hole in their belly there,
Yeah.
and it's like you can draw what you want from that, I guess. Like some people say it's like a reference to abortion or something, but I don't know if that's what they were trying to do, or like forced birth or something like a C-section.
I'm not sure.
Because Walter was born in the world against his will and
Yeah,
left in room 302. That's what I'm thinking, at least.
I'm pretty sure the way he dismembered Miriam Locane, he killed Billy with the swing of his axe, just
Right.
one. And then he dismembered Miriam
Piece by piece, yeah.
before taking her heart. So I think he has a little bit of um, dislike for women.
I
Maybe,
didn't. Yeah,
probably.
yeah, that's what I've noticed. Because like people say it possibly stems from the fact that a female is what gave birth to him and threw him in this world that's full of, cruelty that he's constantly surrounded by. Like he was born
I don't know
against
that
his will.
he specifically had a dislike for women because he really idolized Dahlia Gillespie when she
He
would
did.
come and visit in the prison. And he also really liked Eileen because he saw her once when they were young and she was nice to him. She
It
gave him the doll and everything. So,
Yeah,
it's
like she
weird
was.
though because like if you think about it, he also tried to brutally kill her because he knew that he needed her for the sacraments. That's why she's all like stabbed up. He broke her arm and everything, and then he also stabbed like Cynthia to death. So there's definitely
Yeah.
like some violent mantra there against girls. He also kills dudes as well, but still, it's like very rough stuff is going on right there.
Yeah, like if you look at the book, like if you look at the Another Red Diary or whatever it was that goes over like the profiles of all of Walter's victims, like one of his female victims, he like drowned, like he held her underwater and drowned her. I think there was one that he like pushed off a cliff or something. No, that was a guy. That
What
was a
the
guy. My bad.
hell? Oh
This
man.
this dude
Yeah,
is extra on his female victims.
He
dude.
really is. But I
yeah.
mean, but Lily makes a good point though. I mean, Dahlia would visit him and he would just hang off of her words. I mean, the way that's described, like he really did admire her, which is really weird because that whole cult thing is just super out there, and he really did idolize Dahlia.
Yeah, I
Well, that's
guess I guess maybe it's like I'm sorry to cut you off, Jojo. I guess
it's
it's
all right.
like the ends justify the means when it comes to the 21 sacraments. Because even though he had that respect for Eileen, that all went out of the window when he tried to kill her.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I think like the situation with Eileen and Dahlia was kind of special because Eileen was showed her like legit kindness versus Cynthia who made fun of him when she saw him, and then there was Dahlia who was literally telling him just what he wanted to hear. Oh, you want to learn how to wake up your mom and be with your mother?
Yeah,
Do this.
there's
Yep,
definitely
because
some differing motivation there for sure.
yeah, because he was like the backup plan for reviving their god.
Anyone else on the current question before we move on? The
Oh,
patient.
I was gonna mention that we have that also like pseudo enemy in the wheelchairs in the hospital world.
Oh yeah.
Those wonderful enemies.
Yeah, I think that was a last minute inclusion because, oh, wait, we got this long hallway. What do we do?
Yeah, let's put
Wheelchairs.
wheelchairs, and it's all invisible people or whatever. It's just stuff controlling them, and they can knock you over. It's kind of ridiculous.
And they have that ghost aura too, so if you stand near them, you take damage as if they were a
Yeah,
ghost.
exactly.
Oh man, I can say I don't like them gameplay wise because you got to get through that hallway. It's the only way, and plus you have to examine.
motherfucker.
Yeah, beep, motherfucker. You have to examine multiple rooms as well, and they're still outside. I honestly thought that was the worst section of the hospital in this game because they throw so much crap at you.
Yeah.
And I think we can finally move on to Homecoming, which is a game I haven't played, but I'm sure you guys can pick up the slack.
Well, you know, I'm gonna say this now. I actually do like the monster lore and whatnot, and and Homecoming quite a bit. Even though the game itself is controversial, I don't mind it too much though. But I think the monsters
It's
are
a
definitely
very
cool.
divisive game, considering Team Silent didn't work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
all right, that's to be expected though. But yeah, it's whatever.
That was a double helix, right?
Yeah.
Yep, Double
Yeah.
Helix. It was Shiny Entertainment and some other company merging, aka the guys who worked on Earthworm Jim.
Well, we're gonna make this easy. The first enemy is the nurse, and nurses
Yeah.
really don't look that much different in this game compared to Silent Hill 2. Just it looks like they're a little bit more skimpy because the skirts are like super short. You see more of the thighs.
The boobs, yep, the boobs are more pronounced.
And also, symbolism wise, Alex was talking about them and banging nurses in the military. So there's that. They do explain it. Gameplay wise, you guys have to take that because I have no idea how they fight.
They're pretty aggressive, surprisingly, but they're not too difficult
Yeah.
to shoot down, as far as I remember.
Interesting.
They
Yeah, they're-
fight like the nurses from the movie.
Yep,
Yeah,
they
that's
have
right.
very, very jerky movements where they swipe at you with their knives, and they get more. Some of them are way more aggressive and stronger in some areas, and they have no indication other than the amount of damage they deal to you. They're
Yeah.
weird thing. They're easier to deal with if you turn off the flashlight. Believe it or not.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
fight like
Yeah.
the nurses from the movie. Like that's basically
Mhm.
this game emulates almost everything from the Silent Hill movie, and it's
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really felt that as well.
Yeah,
They
that's
take inspiration from the movie, like how you go in the other world.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
right.
it's
Yeah.
flames on the wall that like sort of come up and down. I'm like, did they take that from the
hate it.
movie?
I hated that so much.
I don't
Oh,
know. I
God.
thought that was like one of the best things about the movie is how it goes into
Like-
the other world.
Yeah, I didn't mind them taking inspiration from it though, but like again, like the game itself is divisive though, but still, like I don't mind them taking ideas from other properties of their brands. So I mean they've done it before, so nothing new
Yeah.
here.
All right, we can move on to the next one, which is the Swarm, and once again, big bug sucking some blood. We know how it works. I assume they work the same gameplay wise, right?
They fly around. These ones actually
Yeah.
fly around, and they're a little bit harder to hit.
Oh, okay. I see. They did something
Yeah,
different here.
they're similar to the ones in 4, but yeah, they are like it's like they're harder.
Yeah, they attack. They like actually coordinate their attacks a little bit,
Yeah.
like a swarm. So it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to deal with them.
Yeah, apparently the symbolism says that they are a subconscious strain of parasitic nature when Alex lost his brother. So it sounds like they're just being like super mentally draining and annoying to him, which makes sense. A parasitic swarm of bad memories. It's like, it's just pretty basic stuff right there for the description.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess we can move on to the next one, the Lurker. Let me take a look at this.
Cool.
Let me take a look at this real quick. Just want to see. Oh,
Is that
okay.
the-
So that's the one with no
Yep.
legs. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the
lurkers are kind of
sideways
tough.
opening mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things look
they're-
cool. Like I like the Zen.
The
Yeah,
design for this one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say this is probably the one that is like the only one that has a design that's like actually like worth anything. All the other
Yeah.
ones they're so like
Yeah.
just like either something that's been done before or it's just something that's not very difficult to put together. But this one actually like it's really creepy, like the way that it can sneak up on you in different areas depending on like what area you find it in. Like the first one comes out of water, and that was like a really cool effect. They just do a
Mhm.
lot of different things with it, but
Mhm.
really like only this one.
Yeah, I thought the lurker actually got to utilize more of Alex's skill set fighting them because they
Yeah.
moved around a lot.
Yep.
Mm,
They
yeah.
move almost like the lying figures when they crawl.
Yeah, just they were a lot more aggressive though. The lurkers were out to kick your ass.
Yeah, these were probably one of the better monsters in Silent Hill Homecoming, I'd say.
Yeah, for me it's the only one that's really worth anything. All the other ones, they're either like, really just non-intuitive, something we've seen before, like almost exactly from another game, and
Yeah.
Oh, the
like a lot
bosses
of the
they have some pretty
combat
cool
like
shit.
patterns with everything else like just were almost non-existent. But this one had like it had variation to it. It's really creepy and creative, and just like the fact that like the first time you see it is in water, so then like other times that you see it after that, it's like a totally different fight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just with their like variation and everything, it makes them like come together like even more. Where like a lot of the other enemies, it's like any of the other games where it's like, okay, just give me a melee weapon and I'll just hit it till it dies. Like just waiting.
Brandon, you were saying something?
I'm saying the boss. I like disagree with that notion, but I think some of the bosses themselves, especially, will look pretty damn neat in part of the original. You know, but to each their own.
I'd say that applies to one of them at least.
The only boss that I was really excited for with Homecoming was Scarlet, but she was the shortest boss. Her battle is like 30 seconds long. And the other ones, it's just like they were all kind of disappointing just for like what they did and how they looked. They all just kind of seemed to steal from other things.
Says in the doc that the best symbolism for this monster was Alex's intended fate, which is drowning. They apparently correlate that to the fact that the monster has no legs, and apparently the legs that it has in the back are like tied up.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it can't escape or do anything, like ropes to the legs. You get thrown in water, you're just done.
It makes sense because the first place you find them in is flooded with water. Oh, wait, the second place, my bad. Or there's like 3 of them, I think, there.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. All right, next up is the feral, which is once again routine dog enemy in this game. You gotta have your doggy, except it looks similar to the ones in the first where it's like skin. Almost looks
Oh
like
yeah,
a cheetah or something.
Except now that it's now that it's stronger hardware, you can actually see the muscles and tissues and veins now.
Yeah.
I thought it was mostly just like a throwback to like the ones from the first game. They look
Yeah.
really similar, especially like in game. They kind of just look like nothing.
Yeah, they just threw. I felt like that was just kind of an easy, quick to throw in monster.
Yeah.
Apparently, the symbolism is from Alex's father skinning dogs, and he didn't want his son to go into the hunting room. He kept warning them, and there's like a photo in the game with this message like scribbled on it from one of the sons when they actually went into the room and saw that. So I guess it serves as like once again bad memories of haunting these kids for snooping in places where all this grisly shit is happening.
Yep, there's even a little flashback scene where Alex as a kid sees his father doing that, and like his father yells at him for it. And
I shouldn't be skinning dolls in the first place. That man's a maniac.
He's a cult member, so there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, next one is the smog, and let me take a deeper look at this before we continue. How does this thing look? Post it in chat.
They kind of reminded
Oh.
me of the Lion figure a little bit.
They
Like the way it
do.
moved. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the first monsters I've ever seen where you actually kind of had to have a strategy to fight it because you had to wait for it to open up its chest and shoot a
Yeah,
bullet in
because
there.
of the smog.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's how it releases the smog, and damaging it any other way barely works. So I think that's kind of cool for a gameplay perspective. It's just I hated how they kind of had to shoehorn it in from a
Yeah.
storyline perspective because it was supposed to represent the burning coal fire that never really happened in the plot because of the movie. And
Exactly. Yeah,
I'm
where,
sorry, it's just that's so stupid. I
I
hate it.
know. I hate that they added that to the movie at all because it was supposed to be for another movie.
Oh,
But
What?
yeah,
What
it's
was?
just like the kind of enemy that we saw, like when we were talking about the wall monsters. How
Mhm.
it's just something you see in a lot of like platformers and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, you have to wait till it opens its mouth and then shoot it, and then it's like, yeah, we saw that in like the first game too. So having this like recurring thing, it's like to some extent it's like nice, but then if you wanted to like reprise something that had happened in the series, why didn't you make it something that looked like that first boss or something like that instead of something
All right.
where you can kind of just think that they did it just because they were trying to go for some kind of gameplay gimmick.
Yep, there you go.
So wait, was that smog monster intended for something else?
It was meant, I think, like it was earlier meant to be for another game, but they decided to put it in there because it was supposed to resemble the burning coal fire that pisses me off that people think is canon. I hate this thing.
Yeah, it like really seemed to me like they had only watched the movie and they didn't play any of the other games when they made this one.
Have tank controls, they're too hard for them.
I give them I give them brownie points for at least trying to do something with it, as opposed to the sequel where everything is uninspired. But we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, we need to get back to the next creature, which is the Needler. And this thing looks haunting. Like it's like a upside down man with like his head near the groin area, and it's like a
Oh,
spider.
another favorite.
Yeah,
Because I don't know, it's so twisted. I just like the design on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an okay monster. I think it's a cool looking monster. It would probably fit into another Silent Hill game if like there's a story about it. Like I always liked fighting these because it actually like showed a lot of the combat gameplay, made advantage of it because like you had to fight it by like sidestepping by pressing the dodge button when it does that swing attack, and then you could swing your own, like your axe or your pipe or whatever.
Yeah, they really
Yeah, you gotta be
utilized this.
smart about it.
Yep.
Yeah, you gotta time your hits. So I think they made this one specifically to like work with the gameplay. So I think it's okay.
It's
Yeah, I
also
was just
kind of
say
a
where
throw.
the gameplay is like decent on them. 'Cause it's just something different for what we've seen from like any of the games or really like a lot of other games. But I personally never really liked the like look of the design.
This one's kind of weird looking. I like this one. It does utilize your abilities, dodging and all that, and then it's kind of a throwback to the pendulum. That's, if you think about it, like the blade arms, and it's like this upside down
Yeah.
looking thing. This one was one of the cooler ones I thought too.
You know, that and the head was kind of a weak point, so if you shot at it with a handgun, you'd do extra damage.
Mm-hmm.
they said that symbolism is very simple. The head lowering itself from the belly could symbolize childbirth, which, I mean, after we got to like 3 hours of this podcast, that's been like a lot of symbolism so far, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus how the arms kind of look like legs being spread apart, not trying to be gross, but that's what I'm noticing when I look at it now.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, then I guess we can move on to the next creature, which is the Schism. And okay, from what I'm seeing here, it's like a hammerhead shark with a giant flesh-like mouth. And I think it can also like cut you in half. Cause I seen a death scene of this before when I was watching this game, and I thought that was pretty sick.
Yeah, it does. It has a special death animation where it slices Alex in half.
Yeah, that looked to me. I saw that and I'm like, that looked awesome. However, from a gameplay perspective, is this thing fun to fight or no?
I'd say no, because there's an easy exploit you can do to kill this thing. Where like if you fight it and try to have it try to chase you, you can walk through a door, and if you go through a door, it'll just stop dead at that door, and then you could like walk up to it through the door and kind of hit it, and
Oh
if you
wow.
and you could just abuse this until it's dead.
It does sound fun, actually. Abuse the
Yeah.
fuck out of it.
That makes me replay this game now.
Yeah.
Stand in a doorway and you're completely safe from it.
They say for the symbolism, because I think it looks cool appearance wise, no doubt. But symbolism wise, the split head could represent Alex's mental state, as he's separated from reality, similar to the mental disorder that is schizophrenia. And I could probably
Yeah.
see it. I think that maybe it could have been externally told better, because once again, the difference between Homecoming and Silent Hill 2 is that Silent Hill 2 has a lot more outward psychological monsters with more story, as opposed to just throwing them in this game and you just simply fight them. But it is there. It's just not as explicit as I want it to be. That being said, I do like how it looks and how they are trying to explain that, yes, this guy is suffering from schizophrenia because he was a soldier.
Cool thing,
Wow.
there's a little thing I noticed about these things is you know, you people who played the game probably know what I'm talking about. This is actually one of the few cool things I can say about this game. When you're in the corrupted version of the Shepherd House, when you go to all the different rooms, there's 3 schism monsters that have special behavior. When you go into, I think what would have been what's his name's room, Josh's room, the schism you fight in there actually kind of runs around like it's scared, kind of like how Josh
Yeah,
acts, because how he's also
sometimes they do
scared.
that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the area where you find where Alex's mother was, you know, she's sitting in that rocking chair all catatonic. The monster kind of just stands there, you know, only reacting when Alex. I keep wanting to say James, damn it. When Alex gets close to it or attacks it, and then there's a hyper aggressive monster, which is where would be James. Dang it, I did it again. Alex's father's room was. I keep doing this. Where Alex's father's room was, and this one, like Alex's father, is really aggressive and angry, and I thought that was kind of a cool little nod to the characters.
Hey, it's fine because they're, well, if we can't talk about the bosses today, that's another podcast. But at the same
Yeah.
time, they have an enemy in this game, which is a Pyramid Head. Surprise! So the Silent Hill 2 influence is definitely there. That being said, that's awesome that there's differing types that will react in differing ways depending on how the lore is written, them being scared or hyper aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for this enemy overall, like I think that it also has like a slight tie to like in 3 how there are those
Mm.
like the numb bodies, the little purple dinosaur things. These
Yeah.
always reminded me of those, like just a grown up version of it. So it's just like that's where like another way I just feel like they were like reusing like stuff for this game, but yeah, I
Yeah.
never really liked the way that these enemies like looked or their like gameplay. Like they're just kind of odd. aside from the cool factor of like it's like 1 in 10 will like act really like weird. There's like one part where they're like endless. There's like 130 of them if you kill them all. But you just like definitely see it there. Where it's just like every like dozen or so you'll get one that just acts totally off from like the way the rest of them do. And that is really interesting.
Any other opinions before we move on? Drill, you were saying something?
No, I think that kind of described it. Honestly, I don't find the designs bad, although it is a bit uninspired.
Would say it kind of reminds me of a Pokemon. Like if someone colored it more, I'd be like, I want to throw a Pokeball at that thing.
That hammerhead one from Pokemon, I forgot its name.
It kind of looks almost like a weird hammerhead shark-looking monster.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. It's like a hammerhead.
That's kind of like the first thing that popped up in my head is, oh, it looked like a hammerhead shark.
Well, the last one for Homecoming is the Siam, which once again is weird, covered in like these little belts or whatever. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. The distinguishing trait is that there's like a woman tied to his back. Like the body is male, the main body, but the female's like stuck in his skin, which is creepy. So that appearance is definitely it sticks out. They say for the symbolism that hulking male has a female melted to his back, and obviously it represents helplessness as well as aggression, being dragged around by fate. And apparently this has something to do with Alex's confusion about relationships, which he talked a little he basically talked a little bit about it in the story itself with notes and everything. How is it from a gameplay perspective? Because once again, I have not played this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate this
Yeah.
frickin' thing gameplay wise, and I'll explain why.
All right.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say it's probably the most frustrating fight in the game.
It is.
Yeah, mainly because in the sewer, like before you fight this thing, you're going through a sewer, and going through the sewer, it's all monsters you can easily kill with melee weapons, but you'll come across a ton of ammo for both handgun and shotgun. But because this game limits, like you can only carry like 5 shotgun shells and like I think 16, 15 handgun bullets, and you're just passing by all this ammo. You can't pick it up no matter what. And then you get to the end where you fight this stupid Siam thing, and it eats up all your ammo. You can use up all your ammo trying to fight this thing. It'll still keep going, and like it pisses me off because before you fought this thing, you had all this ammo sitting around that would have been helpful, but the game won't let you pick it up, and I had to die against this thing 5 times, and oh god.
It seems
That
like
was
this
a-
monster would have gave me a headache immediately.
Oh,
That was
it
a
will.
rant like 10 years in the making, and I feel better for making it now. Fuck this monster.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do like the achievement that you get if you have it on Xbox. It's like Shades of James, and I found out today that actually the Siam actually represents James's burden as being Mary, which is why there's a female on his back. Because I never did understand why you would get that achievement, why they would name it that, but it's supposed to represent James carrying the burden of Mary on him.
Well, there is like that like loose tie to Mary's maiden name being Shepherd. And so
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, so it there's some like vague possibility that just from like timeline stuff that I've seen that people either do for some like certain reasons think that she could possibly be like Alex's like sister, and then other timeline things that like move the timeline up enough where they're like, oh no, she would have been born in this year and his parents would have been like 10, like, so that's impossible. So I've seen like the back and forth for it, but it is possible that she was somehow related to him. She could have lived in the same town, been a cousin, like
Yeah,
some like
the only
mixed relation.
plausible way here is that either one the parents had another child in like a previous relationship, or they're just like cousins or something like that.
Yeah, or it could have been like, Alex's dad's brother's daughter, or it could be that it's completely something 100% different, and it could be that it's a different universe and Mary is Alex in a different universe. Like, it could
Right,
be
yeah.
anything like at this point, but it's just, up to interpretation in many different ways.
All right, I guess from the horrible Siams, we can move on to Downpour, which I played a little bit of.
I've never played this. All I've heard are some of the bad reviews, and that's it.
Yeah, these are some of the most uninspired monsters.
This
Yeah,
is literally down bad.
yeah.
At least with
Good.
I will say this, at least with Homecoming, at least you could tell they had some idea of what Silent Hill was like.
Yeah, they at least tried with Homecoming.
I don't know.
Downpour to try for a different reason.
This is
Yeah.
another no-name studio, Valtra Games, and I don't know why Konami keeps doing this, where they were like on the kick of lending out the IP to unknown developers, yet we got this game.
Stupid.
Yeah, it was really
It-
stupid.
Yeah, because I guess they didn't want like Team Silent to be making them all the time.
Oh my god, they really fucked up then. But let's get into the enemies. The Screamer is the common enemy that you will see in the game, which is a female that is tattered, has claws. I mean, looks wise, this thing is super uninspired. It really does not stand out a lot compared to the other monsters we've seen in the chat so far. Even compared to Homecoming's monsters, like, it is not super appealing, I would say, even though it's ugly. But I just don't get the design here being like super basic. Gameplay wise, they're a joke. I just picked up chairs, threw them, and somehow they just died. Like, that's literally what happened. It's like
Just
you're
stand.
it's
Just
like
stand on one of those piles that just infinitely spawn bricks and shit, and throw them at them, and they're dead.
yeah, all you need to do is just cheese them a little bit with common weapons and you kill them. Is so lackluster in my opinion. I guess we can move on to Symbolism. Apparently they're called Screamers because they possibly represent sirens at Murphy's prison and how they would ring if he tried to escape, which, I mean, it all cycles back to the prison stuff anyway for a lot of the inspiration with these monsters and what, Murphy did. If I say Henry, I apologize. But yeah, I don't know, even that sounds lackluster to me because they don't really do anything special with the idea that they scream at you. They just make noise, you kill them. I've seen games where screamers actually stun you. It's actually a gameplay mechanic. It's actually cool, and this one is not. So that's what I think of them so far.
There's a glitch where when they scream at you, they kind of distort the scream.
Yeah.
There's a glitch where if you happen to pause the game just as they do that, the distortion never goes away until you like quit the game or start it over.
Yeah,
Or something.
See,
the game was infamous for a lot of technical issues.
I never seen that before because I killed them so fucking fast that I did not see them do that technique. So you just throw a chair at them or beat them with like some fucking groceries. I don't know. I'm just making like exaggerations here, but they go down rather quickly.
Yeah, they're kind of the easy enemies to go down. They're annoying, but they're easy.
Yeah, that's what my exact sentiment was just gonna be, that they're really just annoying, especially when they like pile up where there are like 2 or 3 of them. It's just like, like they're just not fun to fight.
I
They're
feel like
annoying sounding, like
I feel like the worst thing is when they catch you off guard. Maybe I can see that being annoying, but if it's a one-on-one fight, then throw stuff and they're usually dead. Next we have the Weeping Bats, which is, I don't know, it's this tall humanoid looking thing.
I thought it would.
Things.
I thought it would, actually look like a bat.
No, it's
Yeah.
I don't know why they call it a bat, and it looks like a humanoid bipedal thing with like a maw. It's weird.
Probably because it spends a lot of time on the ceiling instead of fighting you, which is annoying. Because they
Probably
always
so.
do this. Yeah, they come down, they hit you long enough so that way by the time you stand back up, they're up on the ceiling again. I hate these things. I hate fighting these things so much.
Yeah, honestly, the design looks pretty uninspired.
It
There's
looks
not
like
really there's not really much to say about it.
it
Well,
looks
then
like
again, I haven't played the game.
it looks like the you guys ever see Alien Resurrection? It looks like that alien hybrid monster from
Oh,
that
the
movie.
Yes.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, the one that has like human DNA or something.
Yeah, it's like part human, and that's what this thing reminds me of.
I think it's once again uninspired to me. It doesn't look special or anything. It's like, I don't know, some kid making building block monsters could make this.
It's kind of like the idea of, oh, what makes Silent Hill scary? Let's just put the grotesque monsters, but without any reason behind them.
Yeah, that's mostly what Downpour is, like just random creatures with no explanation at all. They try to put out this lore where it's like supposedly this monster is inhabiting the caves of the devil's pits, but they even said that weeping bats are named after other animals, and it just somehow magically got it without explaining it. So it's weird stuff like that. um they supposedly represent Murphy's sort of fear of trying to hide and escape authorities, which makes sense. And I get it because the monster is like super quick and super fast and trying to get away, but still it's I wish it was better. All right, let's move on to the minions, the prisoners. Let me post a picture of them in chat really quickly. There they are.
This one's one of the dumber looking monsters. It's just got a stoop. It just looks like a dude. I mean, the only like cool part about it, I guess, it's got a tattoo on its chest. It looks like it's
I
trying to
mean,
spell something.
the fact that it's like stretching his face and eyes out is kind of creepy, but yeah.
They said that the symbolism involves the fact that the creature is, you know, being tortured with a old device that's like clamping around his head. So that might sort of be the influence behind the warden's opinions on how he treated prisoners in the cell at Murphy's
Yeah,
prison.
yeah, but the problem is, I think it just looks too human, which kind of doesn't make it scary.
Yeah, it outside of the neat looking face accessory, there's nothing else to write home about. He's like an emaciated Johnny Cage. That's literally how he looks.
The idea behind the monsters, I thought was good. I just didn't expect them to do what they did with this property. I mean, you go to
It looks
prison.
generic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to prison, there's a lot of things that happens to you mentally that they tried to explore, they just didn't do it well. And these guys all represent like the prisoners that he was locked up with. So like the symbolism behind it is just like, eh. And then watching the gameplay of people fighting these things, they literally did the same thing you did, Ran. Just throw chairs at it or bricks or whatever else, and you could take these guys out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another game that takes place in a prison that has more grotesque designs.
I know what you're gonna talk about. You're talking about The Suffering. Yeah, The
Yeah.
Suffering looks 10 times better than this, and that's crazy.
Probably got a
Yeah.
lot of inspiration. They probably took a lot of inspiration from that game when making this thing.
I know
This stupid looking thing.
Yeah, I know Society Tangent. No, I would say The Suffering looks 10 times better, but
Yeah.
the creatures there are explained, and they also take all of the lore and the inspiration behind it. And it's like, oh, this guy got lethal injection. Let's make this monster with like needles in its arms and legs, and it walks around like that. Or maybe someone got like what is it? Electrocuted firing squad. Let's take that and put that into the monster design so they're still suffering and you can see it visually. Like, I would have liked if they did something like that as opposed to these generic designs of Downpour. It looks really lame.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, next up, I'm not even gonna cover the lore for this thing. It's just all stupid. I just want to get through
Looks-
this.
The dolls.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
dolls, which is the, females that are in the game. Apparently their lore is from something called the negative space, where people perceive objects, ideas, or fears as manifestations based on a perception of altered reality. How's the gameplay on these things? Because I have no idea.
I say these were a lot more interesting of an enemy than any of the others in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, because like
So-
they would do this thing where like a spectral image of them would like they would like lay on a chair or whatever, but then spectral ghostly images of them would like attack you. I think that's how it worked.
Yeah, kind of like where the only other like similar enemy that I could think of was in Origins, where they had something in the sanitarium that you would have an easier time fighting it with the flashlight off, and it kind of had like that kind of feel to it, where
Yeah.
they were definitely like creative, maybe not entirely like original, but they were definitely like the most interesting enemy in the game.
At least they tried something. I don't know why the jaw is so huge. Like, this is weird to me.
You know why, Renegade? You know why?
I don't even want to say
Oh, damn it.
I just thought it was them trying to shoehorn like another pointless like another sex reference because they sort of resemble like because they got the makeup and stuff on them like and
If
they
they're
kind of
going,
and they kind
if
of
they're
look
going,
like a blow-up doll or something. I think.
yeah, if they're gonna do something like that, man, they should have done one based around, the prison rape stuff involving the male inmates.
Yeah,
that would have been
would've
super
actually-
haunting.
Yeah.
That would have
know if
been.
I don't know how they get away with that though, because like people would freak out about it.
Silent Hill 2
I mean,
did.
yeah, right. Like this has been done before, so like you freaking out over about that, then you need to
True.
reevaluate something.
It is. If they did that, it would have actually been really uncomfortable and actually effective.
Oh yeah, that
Like-
would have been a scary monster.
Some type of abstract daddy for the prisoners. That would have been super fucked
Yeah.
up.
Ooh.
See?
Yeah.
Oh
Easy.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, the next one we're moving on is the Juggernauts, and once again, if you see the minions, the same thing, except they don't have like the crazy pullback faces. They have some sort of, I don't know, what are those things they put on people? Braces, yeah, and they look more ripped. That's it.
He looks
honestly, from a design point, it just looks like they reskinned it, but just made their skin
Yeah,
more
I
gray.
agree.
he looks like an alt costume for Voldo from Soul Calibur. That's what I'm saying when I see him.
And he's got that perma Joker smile.
Yep, I noticed a lot of the monsters in this game have stupid looking smiles on their faces.
It's supposed to represent the madness that flows through the prison because you're locked up.
Yep, and prisoners fight and kill each other like
Yeah.
that.
Kind of
No,
reminds me-
actually. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
I said this reminds me of something out of Arkham Asylum. If there was a guy wasn't it like the maniac enemies just knock out in one hit.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
vibe I've been getting.
I can see that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can definitely see that.
Like, I thought you were gonna say like Victor Zaz for a second.
Yeah,
I mean, close enough.
that's cool. I think that would actually work as a monster, whereas like the guy is actually so fucking crazy that he keeps marking himself and his victims in his skin. That would be a cool creature design if they do it right and did some like alterations to it.
Like if it was like someone that like maybe Murphy shared a cell with, who like intimidated the crap out of him. He's like, all these marks are from people that I killed, and he kills so many people. He kills so many people like out on workout or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like
Something
so
like
scary.
that, like anything that was thought out for like 10 seconds already sounds like so much more.
Yeah, hey,
Right.
Yeah,
Hey.
the sad thing, they kind of already had something to reference, like the Suffering. Like they could have taken some
Yeah,
ideas from
there
there.
are a lot of different games that do things like that, or movies, or like how we've been saying, like Arkham or like anything Batman, like where it's like if they really wanted to like lift something that's been done before, like there were a lot of ideas they could have gone for, but like what you were saying would have been something totally original, like where if they had actually like pegged down like a nice story, like not a nice story. I think we all have been doing that where we keep saying
Detailed
a nice
story.
idea, and it's but yeah, something that had like any kind of story quality to it or was like real, something that they could have like, like done some like looking into of stuff that goes on in prisons. Like that would have been a really like interesting and different idea.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
That already sounds like a better idea. Come on, Konami, hire us for the next Silent Hill game.
I know, right?
We promise we'll make badass monsters.
Yeah.
Give us all the money, Konami. Come on. The last
I'll do it
one.
for free.
Yeah, the last one is also like just I don't know. To me, it's painfully generic. It's the Boogeyman, and I understand this is supposed to be like this game's Pyramid Head in a sense where he's after Murphy. He's wearing a large black leather drape, and he has like a gas mask. And to me, I wouldn't even think this is a monster. It's really supposed to be just a giant human, in my opinion.
It's
Yeah,
Pyramid Head wearing another costume. That's all it
Yeah,
is. That's all this thing is, and I hate it for
And
that.
they had already done this, like redoing Pyramid Head basically in Origins when they made the Butcher. And
They
it's just like I don't know why they keep trying to redo this. I mean,
That's
obviously
not
it's another team.
I
But
mean,
2 is the
like-
pinnacle of like many Silent Hill fans. So like they're trying to hit
Yeah.
that same sweet spot, but fails miserably.
yeah.
yeah, and
What's-
then at
what-
that point they might as well what they did in Homecoming and just bring Pyramid Head back.
Yeah, and what
and
bums
try to
me out
explain it.
is like this thing, this bogeyman, like they said time and time again when they were making this, we're not gonna bring back Pyramid Head yet. Here he is wearing a gas mask and a raincoat, and then they put him in. They made him like the most powerful monster. I kid you not. In Book of Memories, he's the most powerful monster. He's biased when they made him and put him in these games. Like they said, oh, he's worse than Pyramid Head. I'm Tom Hewlett. Oh, and then here he is. I hate this thing. I hate him. I hate it so much.
I think. I mean, I think the fact is that it's just generic. Like you could have just thrown it into another game, honestly.
The hammer's cool. I'll say that much. That's pretty cool and neat, and that would have been maybe great for another design, but probably not for this one.
So
Yeah.
I like the Boogeyman simply because in the game you actually have cutscenes where Murphy is given a choice to do something where he hurts someone or physically kills them, or he finds another way around that, and that's supposed to represent this is Murphy's judicator. This is what Pyramid Head was to James, right? But at the same time, this is actually who he is. Whereas with James and Pyramid Head sometimes was showing James the correct path to go on, where here this is literally another side of Murphy and he has to choose. No one's actually guiding him. There's not a guide. It's like Virgil and Dante. Like Murphy has no Virgil. His Virgil is his consciousness. So the Boogeyman was not a bad idea. It's just everything else that goes along with it. It's just at this point it's just a try hard attempt, and it sucks because I kind of like the character, but they didn't do enough with it. It's like this whole game is kind of like that. There's just a lot of stuff here that just had an opportunity for, and they just didn't do enough with them.
I do like that idea of instead of having a punisher, you have an oppressor. Like
Right.
I love that idea. The monster itself isn't attacking the player's like conscience or anything. It's actually hurting and maiming other people, and I think that idea should be represented more if they even continue Silent Hill in the future. Because going out of your way to do that and having that other side is the same as the Butcher, where he's an inner killer and the other guy isn't really aware of it. I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. that yeah, and it's just disappointing to see. Again, like there's a lot of opportunity there. I feel the same way about the butcher. I think the butcher's a cool idea, but what happened to it? You know, what happened with them?
Yeah, they didn't really like expand much on it.
Just see it as another generic monster that's just a representation of guilt. That, like I said, I just think they were trying to do. They were making this too close to Pyramid Head just because it's another thing that represents guilt, and that's why I don't really like this thing.
Yeah, we're just it was again like another game that just did too much where they just were looking at two and doing stuff with like, oh, let's like do more prison stuff and let's have another Pyramid Head, but not really Pyramid Head
Right.
and they like reprised the that like just like chase scene like that Heather goes through and like the amusement park and like had that throughout the game like
Yeah.
that was like an enemy and that like that sequence like was really strong in 3 but it only happens like the one time. It kind of happens in the hospital but not like in like even a similar way where it's just like this sequence that you get like stuck in over and over and it's like it's cool for like PTSD sort of like frame of reference but like to continually do it over and over like just was too punishing to the player. And it's just like that's kind of what like all of the enemies felt like. This is just like punishment
All right,
after a point.
let's move on to the final question, which is, it's not gonna take long. It's not as detailed as all the other ones. We're gonna talk a little bit about the enemies and origins. What do you guys think of those from the list I gave you?
Admittedly, they're kind of boring. Like they're well designed, but at the same time they're just boring.
Yeah, the
Nothing
problem
exciting.
I have is that they're kind of just retreads of stuff we've already seen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're a victim of being a air quotes prequel, so there's not so much they can do.
Yeah, they made the straight jackets
Yeah.
pretty much just like the straight jacket monsters and the lying figures in Silent Hill 2, all the way
Yeah.
down to them spewing poison at you, and they just added a button timing God of War mini game to fighting them, which I thought was kind of dumb.
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
the only cool monster that I kind of liked was maybe what's this one called? The Ariel, the one that's like the dummy that's hanging from its feet. I kind of thought that was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it's like weird that like from these pictures, like in game, that none of these monsters really look the way that they're pictured here. Where like the aerials, like you don't even see most of the monster like hanging from the ceiling. Where like that is like such a different view than what they look like in game, like at all. But I think that the remnants were definitely like one of my like favorite enemies, like almost in anything ever. Like they were just so well done and like so thoughtful for like the area that you find them in the sanitarium. Like they were definitely like difficult monsters. Like where when you like realized that you were going to have to fight one, like you almost wanted to like leave, like go collect more items and like save. Like it was like a mini boss. Like those were like really well done. They were difficult and there were just like different ways to approach them. But
They were creepy too.
yeah,
Like
they had great sounds too.
like when you shine the light on them, despite being invisible except for the cage that they have on their head, they cast a shadow. And you ever notice how polite they are? Because like when they see you, they stop and wave at you and say hi. I'm not even joking. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, where they're and it's like really creepy, like the way that they do it too. So it's like there's like definitely like something like layers of things going on with that enemy that and of course like approaching them in total darkness where they're not even like sure that you're there yet is the best way to go about them. But yeah, they can be quite a fight.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that they were throwing back a lot of the. I mean, nurses obviously have to be in it because of Alessa, but Straight Jacket didn't belong there. That was not a Silent Hill prequel enemy. I don't believe. The other ones, Carrion and Caliban and Tubac. I mean, it doesn't. None of those really fit to me. Ariel Remnant was cool. I liked Remnant, and my favorite is Butcher because you don't really know why. Again, it's not just another monster that's there. That's not only killing creatures, but after Travis as well. But it could also represent. There's like a theory that he is killing prostitutes or women at the motel that the butcher's in, and that's supposed to represent him because of some of the excerpts that you find there. So I kind of like the potential tie-in there, but it is just a prequel, and like it was said earlier, there's not a whole lot you can do. So they're kind of tied into the lore that's already been laid down. All in all, I thought some of the monsters here were okay, but that's kind of where I just bought it just because it was Silent Hill 0.
Yeah. I like that idea though of Travis supposedly being this, repressed serial killer and you play as him as opposed to, I think the only time we got something like that is when James killed his wife and he wasn't like a mass murderer or anything. We never got anything like that where you're actually playing as someone super evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So I do think that idea is also cool. It's just it hasn't been really touched up on ever since that. The last thing here, you know what? I'm gonna throw in a freebie. Anyone, do you have anything to say about the monsters from Shattered Memories?
I like how its appearance changes based on your psychological profile, but other than that, I don't like how you can't fight these things and they're constantly chasing you.
Hmm.
Like, I think
But
Shattered Memories would have been better if they would have given you combat. Other than that,
I think like the thing is that it's heavily more story focused compared to the other games, and
That
also
many monsters,
yeah,
like it's
not
like
the
very handful.
yeah, and the way they implemented puzzles was really cool since they actually make you use the phone a lot.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot to that game that's good. Uh, but there was like it just reminded me of the happening where everyone's running from the wind. That's kind of what I felt like. He's just constantly running. There's no combat. He's kind of just like a guy that's trying to survive, and he's kind of a coward. He just happens to do the right thing sometimes. I do like the psychological exam during the gameplay, so you get your different endings based on what you do. That was really neat, and I played that on the Wii.
Yeah, I think that it would have been stronger as a different title where they had done something that would have been a competitor to Amnesia because it basically was just Amnesia.
Yeah,
So I think it would have been a lot stronger to not be a Silent Hill title. They could have just called it Shattered Memories and just you know, purported it as like an Amnesia competitor.
yeah, most of the creatures here are just like pale humanoid. Um, the feminines, they have their cheeks out, and is like variations of that where they have cancers on them or they have these weird symbols on their heads. It's just variations of this, and that's about it. Um, Other than that, it's interesting that people are mostly saying it had cool mechanics, yet the problem is you can't fight back. And in the original, I remember this game was like a remake of Silent Hill 1.
Reimagining.
Yeah, reimagining. So it's like, you have no gun. The ice effects were cool in the city, and I don't think that's been like done before ever outside of that. There's nothing really to write home about for the enemies.
Yeah, I think like everything aside from the combat's really well done.
So this thing called the raw shock, it looks like, I don't know, chewed up gum. That's just my opinion on that.
it can change to look like it's like you can make it to where it looks like it's diseased if you get like the Harry is drunk theme going or something.
Also, the profiles, they also changed the creatures.
Yeah.
Yep, change the way the creatures look and sometimes the way they behave, but other than that, it's the same monster.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. I think it's worth probably a one-time playthrough, at least for me. I'm probably gonna play this and pick it up sometime. Same for Origins, and see what I missed so far. However, that is the end of this podcast. I'm going to start doing outros now. I'm gonna do mine first. So you can find me on Twitter at RenOperative_. You can find me on YouTube at Renegade Operative, and I will be working on this podcast sometime tomorrow for the IAS and my channel. So look forward to that. Next we're gonna outro Mr. Drillbit.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Drillbit777. That's really where I'm mostly active at the moment.
Brendan.
And you can find me on Twitter at Immortal Brendel. That's it.
Jojo.
You can find me on YouTube at JoJo's Woodshed. I stream at least 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and sometimes I stream on Sundays.
And he's also a frequent Among Us streamer.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
Next up is Black Devil.
You can find me at Twitter at Save State Heroes and on YouTube, Save State Heroes stream, and we have a main channel that's at Save State Heroes. Check out our videos.
Lily.
You can find me at Lily_Greywolf and like YouTube, and I stream on Twitch every night, 9 p.m. Central.
And Drill, I hit you, right? You got yours, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
You didn't hit him, but you did his outro.
All right,
Wow.
all right. Mr. Drillbit777. All right, we are done with this podcast. I will put it up as soon as I finish, and it was fun talking about Silent Hill. Like I said, the boss discussion for all the creatures that are boss fights, that will be done in the future, so look forward to it. I left them out for a reason because it's going to be another part. But we're going to be talking about how we handle all those motherfuckers when we finally get around to that. Other than that, we will see you guys next time. Take care and peace out.
Later.
Bye bye.